Ladies and, ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, we're about ready to get started. It's a little after 6. We have a quorum. We will not call the meeting to order until 6:30, but we're going to start with the preliminary matters, the introductions, the recognitions, the award presentations. I want to thank everyone who has put this town meeting together, all the boards and committees that have worked. I'd like to thank Dottie Powers and her staff, the registrars, and the runners, the select board, the school committee, the planning board, and all other elected officials. Our town administrator, who is not here this evening, and his finance team, Chris is ill, and all our town employees, boards, and commissions for their preparation and work in making this happen and presenting the warrant. Thank you all. We have a wonderful town, and it couldn't happen without the work of everyone. I'd like to thank the people I appoint, the Finance and Warrant Commission, the Personnel Board, and the Permanent Building Committee for all the work they've done in the past year. Town Council Pat Ahern, Assistant Moderator Paul Fitzgerald, and Assistant Moderator Joe Previtera. I couldn't do my job without them. Thanks to all of you. So I think we're going to start with Mr. Gotti from the Select Board.
Thank you, Jim. First of all, thank you to everybody for being here tonight for 2022 Annual Town Meeting of Westwood. We're going to start with some recognitions, and there's no better place to start than in recognizing Pam Dukeman at her official last town meeting as Director of Finance and Assistant Town Administrator. She's had 31 years of service and has sat here for 31 of these town meetings and served us very, very well. During her tenure, Pam has been an integral part of the town meeting process, and her presence and knowledge of the town's finances will be greatly missed. Please give a round of applause for Pam Dukeman. Pam, you can tell how everybody's going to miss you. You've come to engender a lot of trust and goodwill, so thank you. Other notable members of boards and committees who will be retiring this year. John Cronin, who served on the Permanent Building Committee for 10 years, from 2011 and 2021. Thank you, John. Chuck Bean, who has served on the Permanent Building Committee for the last 5 years, from 2016 through 2021. Is Chuck in the building? Tom McCusker, who served for the last year on the Planning Board and has served the town in so many ways over the past 40 years. Tom, are you here? And now to some elected officials who are retiring. Dave Atkins, who I had the pleasure of serving with on the Planning Board. He was on the Planning Board for 6 years, from 2016 through 2022. Dave, I think I saw you earlier. You here? Jessica Cole, who has served on the library trustee from 2016 to 2022. Thank you, Jessica. Carol Lewis, who served on the school committee from 2010 through 2022, a dozen years in service, including as chair in 2015, 2018, and 2021. Thank you, Carol. Al Wizialko, who has served as the town tax collector for 3 decades. Al, thank you very much for your service from who retired in 2021, September of 2021. Thank you, Al. And finally, to my colleague, John Hickey. John has served as a select board member for 6 years, from 2016 to 2022, serving as chair in 2017 and 2020. On behalf of the entire Select Board, we would like to thank and all the residents, we'd like to thank those who have served and currently serve on the various boards and committees. We value your time, effort, and commitment, and you certainly have embodied that, John. So thank you very much. John's going to come forward and say a few words before presenting the John J. Cronin Award.
I was always told either be funny or brief, and I'm not that funny, so I will be brief, I promise. But I sincerely thank you all for the opportunity to serve these past 6 years. I was told very early on in politics that a vote is an extension of trust, and so for the trust that you have placed in me these past 6 years, I thank you. It was an experience I'll always treasure. We are incredibly fortunate in the town of Westwood for the staff that we have, just a truly engaged group of people. And I don't want to mention too many, but I think it's important to mention Pam Dukeman, who joins me in retirement, I guess, Chris Coleman and Nora Locknane, the chiefs of police and fire, who we're so grateful for. My colleagues in government, especially the school committee, who I feel like I've worked with so closely over these years. I wish Carol the best in her retirement as well, and I know the town joins me in welcoming Dory to the board. And most importantly, I guess, for my colleagues is those who have served before me. This was a seat held by Patrick Ahern for 18 years, Nancy Hyde, Rob Gotti, Michael Walsh, and I know you all join me in welcoming Marianne LeBlanc Cummings to the board tonight. And most importantly, my wife Wendy and my 3 beautiful children who have joined with me in service these past 6 years, and Wendy would do additional juggling of children so that I could serve. So it has truly been a pleasure. I thank you all very much. I have reminded the board and the school committee I'm not really going anywhere, but I will forego the elected part for now. We are so fortunate in Westwood for all of the public service and the volunteers who just make this such a great town. And it's in that spirit that I'll continue one of my final acts as a select board member this evening, and that is my privilege to present the John Cronin Award. So I'd ask at this time that John Cronin join me and that Mr. Edward Ned Richardson join me. Thank you, Ned. All right. I know Ned is thrilled to stand up here in front of the crowd. I only have about 10 pages, Ned, okay? It won't be too long. The John Cronin Public Service Award Committee annually awards Westwood's highest honor to an individual who has been remarkable in service to the community. John Cronin, our town treasurer for many years, selflessly gave of his time and expertise for the betterment of the town of Westwood, both as an elected official and in numerous volunteer activities. To recognize the spirit of community involvement illustrative of John Cronin's life, it is with great pleasure that we announce Edward Richardson as the 20th recipient of the John J. Cronin Public Service Award. Ned was first appointed to serve as a member of the Permanent Building Committee in 1990, and he served until 2010, serving as chair from 1999 to 2008. During this time, Ned shared his extensive knowledge of zoning, subdivisions law, and real estate law. During his tenure, Ned was involved in the design, renovation, and construction of the Martha Jones Elementary School, the Downey Elementary School, the Thurston Middle School, and Westwood High School. Ned oversaw the construction of the athletic fields associated with the Thurston Middle School and Westwood High School. In addition, Ned played an integral role in the design and construction of the Carby Street Municipal Office Building and the Westwood Senior Center. In 1993, Ned was elected to and served on the planning board until 1998, serving as chair in 1995 and 1996. He was instrumental in the creation of the Town of Westwood Development Guide, which provided a comprehensive guide of bylaws, rules, and regulations governing the town's land use development process and was used to define the roles of such regulatory boards in the process. During this time, in conjunction with the Town Center Steering Committee, the board prepared a Town Center strategic plan to look to improve the quality and economics of the town's commercial centers. While serving the town in varying capacities for the better part of 2 decades, Ned gave generously of his time and demonstrated the qualities of leadership, dedication, and service. His opinions were valued by the Permanent Building Committee, the Planning Board, town staff, elected officials, and other boards and committees. Ned has been an active member of the American Legion Post 320 in Westwood for 38 years and currently serves as the past adjutant. The American Legion is a service organization committed to the monitoring and sponsoring of youth programs in the community. Ned and his wife, Catherine, have been Westwood residents for over 30 years. Ned earned his JD from Suffolk University Law School and has been an active member of the Massachusetts Bar since 1973. He has been a successful attorney in the field of probate, real estate, and zoning law. On behalf of the John J. Cronin Public Service Award and the entire town of Westwood, it is with great pleasure that we present the prestigious award to Edward Ned Richardson and add his name to the plaque displayed in Town Hall, listing all previously honored individuals. Please join me in congratulating Ned.
All I can say is I really don't deserve this, but I'll take it. But I would say one thing, the town of Westwood gave me a lot more than I ever thought of giving them. And I would like to thank whoever that was who sponsored a town meeting article about 30 years ago that put defibrillators on the fire trucks. Because 25 years ago, I used one. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ned. Thank you to all those retiring members. At this point, we should take a moment of silence to remember those who have served the town, but whom we have lost within the past year. I don't know if we have the names, Melinda. May they rest in peace. Are we going to do the swearing in at this point, Dottie?
Welcome and congratulations to all who were elected to town offices at the annual town election, which was held on Tuesday, April 26th. At this time, I would like our newly elected officials to come forward when your name is called to be recognized and given the oath of office. Christopher J. McEwen, Office of Assessor. Don't think Chris is going to be here this evening. Okay. Paul T. Fitzgerald, Office of Library Trustee. Nancy T. Donahue, Office of Library Trustee. James M. O'Sullivan, Office of Moderator. Kathleen Wynn, Office of Planning Board. Is Kathleen here? I haven't seen Kathleen. Okay. Joshua C. Ames, Office of Planning Board. I did see Joshua. There you are. Philip M. Giordano, Office of Planning Board. Anthony Tony Mullen, Office of School Committee. Dorothy, my namesake, Dory Parmalee, Office of School Committee. Marianne LeBlanc Cummings, Office of Select Board. David W. Krumsiek, Office of Sewer Commissioner, but I don't think David's here this evening. And Elaine DeRena, Office of Tax Collector. We truly appreciate all of you who are volunteering and taking time to serve our community. I'd like you all to raise your right hand and please repeat after me. I. Please state your name. do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
according to the best of my knowledge and ability,
according to the best of my knowledge and ability,
perform the duties of the office
perform the duties of the office
in which I was elected to,
which I was elected to,
in accordance with the bylaws
in accordance with the bylaws
of the town of Westwood
of the town of Westwood
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
Thank you all for your time and commitment to the Westwood community, and please, everybody, give our newly elected officials a round of applause. Thank you all.
We had some Girl Scouts. Where'd they go? Ty. I'd like to call the Girl Scouts and the Cub Scouts up to the stage to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Does Ava want to come up, Ty? I'm going to ask each of you to state your name so everybody out there knows who you are.
Colin Hennessy.
Colin Hennessy.
Joey Nicosia. Patrick Nicosia. Frank is here. Lana Doe. Grace Walsh. Avi Cook.
Thanks, guys. Who's going to hold the microphone? You ready? Everybody raise your hand, cover your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. I can't officially call it to order for another 8 minutes. But we could, you want to go over the use of the voting devices?
Yep, we could actually do that. Okay, so this evening, everybody, when you checked in, you were all given an electronic voting keypad, which looks like mine. This is going to be used when the moderator calls for electronic vote. Each registered voter received a keypad upon check-in. These keypads use reliable radio frequency and they're very secure. You will be asked to respond to an article by casting your yes or no vote. There's only 2 ways you can vote, yes or no, and if you look at your keypad, it's clearly labeled yes and no. Please don't take the keypad with you. It doesn't work outside of this venue and has a very high replacement cost. When you exit, please return the keypads to a staff member located at each exit. When it's time to vote, if the moderator calls for an electronic vote, I'm going to repeat this again. To vote, press the button with the number that corresponds with the vote you wish to cast. 1A is yes, 2B is no, and you will have 20 seconds to cast your vote. Using your keypad, your vote will be sent automatically. OK will appear on your keypad display confirming receipt of your vote, and you may correct your previous votes as long as polling is open. Only your last vote will count. We're going to do some test questions. Thought we'd have a little fun tonight. The first question is, the Boston Post cane is awarded to Westwood's oldest citizen. Do you think that this person is 107 years old? If you think yes, then you want to press 1A for yes, and if you don't think so, you want a 2B for no. So voting is open. Everybody have enough time? You final answer? Okay. Let's show the vote. Okay, it was half and half. Well, I'll have you all know that there is somebody in town that has the cane. We awarded it to her a couple of years ago, and she is 107. She will be 108 in October. And she's very healthy. So if we could all live to be that age. The next question, this is a fun one for all you basketball fans out there. Will the Boston Celtics beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round of the NBA playoffs? Again, using your keypad, press 1A if you think they will, yes, and 2B if you don't think they will, no. And voting is open. Okay, has everybody decided? I know it was a hard one, but okay. So voting is closed, and let's see what the answers are. So 99%, 99 of you said yes. Okay, good. And I think we have one more here. Oh, we don't have another one? Okay, that's it. So I hope everybody has a hang of it and you're comfortable with it. So we'll let the moderator decide when we're going to be using it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie. What time is it? We've got 3 more minutes. Melinda, can we run the slides for the rules of town meeting? Oh, there you are. Okay. We have 3 runners with 2 microphones. If you would like to speak on an article, we ask that you stand and I will recognize you. You cannot speak until I recognize you. The proponent of the article will speak first. We have 23 articles to discuss this evening. The first 12 are select board articles. The next 2 are 2 citizens' petitions. Then Articles 15, 16, and 17 are 3 more select board articles. And then the final 6 are the planning board articles. And these will come after the planning board issues its report. The proponent of the article will speak first, and then anyone else who's a registered voter will have an opportunity to speak. There is a 5-minute limit when you're speaking, and I'll have a timer up here at the podium. And there is a limit of speaking twice to any one article. I ask that all your comments be addressed to the podium here, to the moderator. Do not talk to individuals, do not talk to each other across the auditorium. When you do rise, please give us your name and your street address. The town bylaws prohibit people from discussing personalities, so you cannot discuss personal characteristics of anyone else in the room. So, for example, you could not get up and argue that this article should be voted down because it's supported by Jim O'Sullivan. Jim O'Sullivan is a lawyer. All lawyers are no good, so vote against it. Some of that is true, but you can't raise those characteristics. Please limit your remarks to the article, the 4 corners of the article, and if I see anyone straying outside those 4 corners, I will rap the gavel, and when you hear the gavel, that means to please stop talking until we can straighten out the issue. Please be respectful. Oh, okay. We also have a microphone, 2 microphones in the back. There's a standing mic right there, and I think there's another one right here at the end of this aisle. The beauty of town meeting it's the purest form of democracy we know. The town meeting itself is almost 400 years old. I'm not, but the system is almost 400 years old. It works well. You are the legislature of the town. What you vote, you're going to vote on the budget tonight and a few other articles. You are the legislature. I ask that you be respectful to whoever speaks. We encourage free and open discussion. Just because someone has a different opinion doesn't mean they don't have an opportunity to be heard. So please do not comment, do not criticize, do not boo, do not clap. Just be respectful for anyone who has the nerve, frankly, to get up and speak. It's not easy. I ask that you not take out your cell phones and video anyone who's speaking. This meeting is being recorded. You'll be able to see it on Westwood Media Center. They do a great job. They perform a great service for the town, and really appreciate what they do, but you'll be able to see whatever anybody has had to say once the meeting is over. When it comes time for a vote, I may first call for a voice vote. If I do, I will announce what I think the vote is. If you challenge my interpretation of the vote, 7 voters can do that. If 7 people rise, you challenge my interpretation, and then we will proceed to electronic voting. I may decide that if there's enough of a debate, I'm going to run this as quickly as I can. It might be quicker simply to go to the electronic voting. Once the electronic voting happens, there's no challenge of that. And that would be final, and I'll announce it. Is there anything else? Okay. We have 2 articles, I believe, that all the articles come on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission. There are 2 articles where the Finance and Warrant Commission recommends indefinite postponement of the article. And I'll go over the rules again. But in order to vote on the article, you have to overcome indefinite postponement. Indefinite postponement means FinCom has decided the town should not pass this article at this time. So the first motion is for indefinite postponement. If you would like the article to pass, you have to vote against indefinite postponement, and then once that happens, then we would have a second vote on the article itself, the merits of the article. If indefinite postponement passes, then the article is dead. And indefinite postponement, the quantum vote is by majority. So if a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement, the article is dead. If not, then we go on to those 2 articles, and I believe those 2 articles would then require a 2/3 vote. Finally, there's this concept called a motion for reconsideration. This happens after there's been a vote on an article. It can only happen once, and it can only happen on the night that the article was discussed. Now, we're going to do our best to make sure we finish tonight. If we do not get through all the articles, then we would have to have a second night to finish it. You could not reconsider an article on the next night that was voted on tonight. Usually it's a parliamentary tactic, and a motion for reconsideration can only be made by someone who voted on the prevailing side of the vote. And I think that's it. Madam Clerk, the town warrant has been duly posted. We have a quorum. I now have the privilege of calling this meeting to order. Okay. First article is Article 1. I hope you all have the books. This comes before the town on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote. Are you going to do your presentation first? Okay. All right. Ms. Dukeman is going to do her presentation. My apologies. And as John said earlier, and Rob, she's terrific. Whenever she makes her presentation, I know this stuff. I can't pass the quiz next week, but I'll know it tonight. Thanks, Pam. Thanks for all you've done.
Yes. Thank you. And so for the last time, Pam Dukeman, 57 Sexton Ave. Thank you. We do each year at town meeting take a little bit of time before we start the warrant articles to give you an update on the town's finances and some background on the financial articles that you're asked to vote tonight. And I can't thank you enough for all your patience and attention over many years with the town's finances. And our town meeting members have done an excellent job with handling our town finances, so thank you for that. Tonight, just for logistic purposes, we did pre-record our presentation with the help of Westwood Media, and they're going to play that for you now. So again, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Pam Dukeman, 57 Sexton Ave, and I am the Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director for the town. Each year at town meeting, we'd like to provide you with an update on the town's finances and some background on the financial articles that you'll be asked to vote. The information that we're reviewing is included in your town meeting warrant book, and there's also additional information on the town's website. Also, the Select Board, Finance and Warrant Commission, and School Committee have been working on the budget since last fall. Presentations made at any of those meetings are available on the website, as well as the recordings of those meetings on Westwood Media's website. And we thank Westwood Media for their help in helping us to get all the information on our finances out to the community. As we start to look at our update on our finances, it's important to know that our budget must address multiple areas of the town's finance. We first look at our operating budget, our main area of providing services to the community through our school and municipal budget. That's the area that's most familiar to people in town. However, it's also important that we address our capital budget. We need to make sure that we're properly maintaining our town facilities and that we're providing appropriate and efficient equipment for our departments to use, particularly our public safety and public works departments. We also need to address our reserve accounts, making sure we have appropriate funding to protect the town in case of emergency, and it's an important component of our credit rating. We also need to address our long-term liabilities. Those include our pension and OPEB funding. And we're always trying to address all of those items on the impact on our tax bill, as we are financed through our real estate tax revenue. It is a very difficult balance to handle all of these areas. Over the last several years, our Select Board, our Finance and Warrant Commission, and our town meeting has done an excellent job at making sure that we're presenting comprehensive budgets that address all of these areas. Looking first at our revenue, the FY23 total revenue budget is $112 million, or about a 4.2% increase over the current year. The pie chart shows you the components of our revenue, with our main area, real estate taxes, shown by the blue piece. Almost 80% of our revenue comes from our real estate taxes. We have a much lower reliance on state aid, shown in the gray slice at about 6% of our total revenue. This is a very typical revenue chart for a suburban community in Massachusetts. If you saw this same chart for a large city in Massachusetts, you'd see a much higher reliance on state aid. So, as I said, we are very reliant on our real estate tax revenue. That means it's always a challenge to present a balanced, comprehensive budget. Our revenue source is restricted by a formula, Proposition 2.5, and again, we always must balance the services we're providing with that impact on our tax bill. Looking next at that revenue from taxes through Proposition 2.5. A lot of people think Prop 2.5 limits the increase in their tax bill to 2.5% each year. It doesn't. Prop 2.5 really is a limit on the total taxes that the town can raise, and it's really driven by a formula. This slide does show how that formula works. The column on the right is our budget estimate of taxes for FY23. As shown in red, the formula just simply begins with a number from the prior year. For us, that's $86.7 million. We're then allowed to increase that by 2.5%. We're then allowed to increase for an estimate of new tax growth. That's new taxes coming from any new development in town. That is not taxes from just increases in town value. If property values go up, that does not have any impact on our tax levy, but new development does. We're showing that in 2 lines, one for University Station and one for all other. We have separated the University Station simply so that people can look back and see what that increase has been over the last several years. At this point, the new growth is estimated. This will not be finalized until fall of 2022 when the Department of Revenue analyzes and certifies our new growth. Continuing with the formula, if we had a general override, it would come in next, and then that totals to what's called our tax levy limit. For FY23, $89.4 million. The formula then allows us to add to that any interest and principal for exempt debt, any debt approved outside the limits of Prop 2.5. For FY23, that's just over $1 million. That then brings us to our total levy capacity. That is the amount that we could tax as a community. The red circle here shows what we're actually taxing in our budget, $90.3 million. The difference between the upper limit and what we're actually taxing is called unused tax levy, taxes that the community could have raised and spent but did not. On a budget basis for FY23, that's $160,000. If you look back over the last several years, you can see that our actual excess levy was higher, ranging anywhere from $800,000 to about $1.2 million. We do expect that this unused levy for 23 will be higher once our estimated new growth is certified in the fall. So that's Proposition 2.5. That's the formula that dictates how much we can tax in our budget process. So the town has not taxed to the maximum capacity in several years, and we have also not had a general override since 2007. That is primarily due to the new tax increases from University Station. Meaning if we wanted to have the school budget and the municipal budget that we now have, if we did not have University Station revenue, we would have had to go to the community for a general override. One more area on tax, looking at the taxes, is the commercial value. It's very important to the town's finances. The town has a split tax rate, meaning we charge commercial property at a higher rate than residential. As shown on the pie on the left, commercial value in our current year is about 15% of total value in town. But because they are charged at a higher rate, they pay, as shown on the right, 26% of the total taxes. So while value, again, 15%, they're paying 26% of the total taxes raised. This is a significant savings to our homeowners. Without the split tax rate, the tax bill for our average home in town would increase by an additional 15% or $1,800. Looking now at the expense side, FY23 total expenditures, $112 million, or about a 4.2% increase. The pie chart shows the components of that total spending. By far, as shown in blue, the largest area of expenditures is in our school and municipal operating budgets. Almost 66% of our total spending is that area. Next would be fixed cost budget, 18%, as shown in yellow. That's our overhead costs for all of our employee benefit costs, our health insurance, our pension obligations and such. And then our debt budget, 5%, as shown in red. So the largest area of our spending is providing that core service to the community through our school and municipal departments. And of those budgets, 80% of that spending is for staffing. So really our major source of spending is for our school teachers, our police, our firefighters, and our DPW employees in their daily operation of services to the communities. With the operating budgets, we strive for sustainable budgets. We strive not to grow those budgets bigger than we can maintain year to year, and we strive for stability to the school and municipal budgets. Looking next just at that operating budget. The total operating budget for FY23, $105 million, or about a 3.9% increase over the current year. The bar graph does show the distribution of that operating budget, with the school component shown in blue, just over $52 million, followed by municipal in red, $22 million, the fixed cost yellow, and then our debt service in the green, about $5.8 million. That is a very standard distribution of the operating budget for a community in Massachusetts with a high-performing school district. So it's very typical where you'll see the school budget component being the largest component of the operating budget and almost twice that of the other areas. Looking further, the table at the bottom shows the increase by category in each of those sections of the operating budget. So our total growth for FY23, $3.9 million. The largest portion of that coming in our school budget, $1.7 million increase, followed by the fixed cost area, a $1.2 million increase over the current year, and finally the municipal budget, $800,000 increase over the current year. Looking next at our capital budget, it is important for the town to maintain our town and school assets, that we are maintaining our buildings, town infrastructure, our roadway and sidewalks, and again, our equipment that our departments use to provide their operations. The bar graph shows our base spending each year for school and municipal capital. As shown in green, the proposal for FY23, $2.3 million. As you can see on the graph, the $2.3 million is in line with what we've done the last several years and is in line with what the town's financial policies are for our target capital budget spending. If you look at the graph, you can see that about 10 years ago, we were far short of meeting our target on capital. And our Select Board and Finance and Warrant Commission and Town Meeting have done an excellent job the last several years in increasing that spending to more appropriate levels. We have received significant feedback over the last couple of years from residents that they are able to see that reinvestment in the communities. They see our buildings being better maintained, and they see the various assets throughout town, our roads, our fields, and our equipment for our departments being maintained at a more appropriate level. Since FY17, our town meeting has approved an additional capital budget article each year beyond those base articles. The effort with that article has been to catch up in capital from those years that we were not meeting our target spending, and also to handle any larger items that do not easily fit within the base capital article. The bar chart here shows you that spending each year in that additional capital article, with the target for FY23 in green, $682,000. Some of the items we've done the last couple of years include a large school IT network project, high school, the lighting of the tennis court. Last year we did the replacement of the multipurpose turf field at the high school and some large repairs for the pool. Each year in this article we are funding projects using available revenue on hand, such as free cash or a meal or hotel tax revenue. Looking next at our town debt. It's an important component of our overall finances. The bar graph shows the total amount outstanding in debt at the end of each fiscal year. As shown in green, at the end of this year, fiscal 22, the town has $34.5 million in outstanding debt. It has been a very favorable borrowing climate for the town. We have a very strong credit rating. We hold a AAA with Standard & Poor's and a AA1 with Moody's. It's also been an excellent interest rate environment the last several years. We have also worked to target new debt that we sell to time that to replace old debt dropping off. Our recent bond sales do include a bond this March 2022. The town sold a $7 million bond that covered projects previously approved by town meeting for road work, DPW and fire vehicles, and the first two pieces of the new Hanlon-Deerfield School project, particularly the feasibility and design portions. That bond had terms of 5 to 30 years, and we received a net interest rate of 2.2%. That followed a bond sale the previous March, 2021. The town sold a $7.7 million bond. That was to finance the Wentworth Hall project, some road work, and also included a refinancing of our library and Thurston modular debt. That bond had 8 to 20-year terms, and we received a net interest rate of 1.14%. So again, it's been a terrific interest rate environment and a great environment for the town to sell debt over the last several years. Each time we issue debt, we do go through an update to our credit rating. So this March, the town had an updated credit review with Standard & Poor's. We underwent a rigorous review process where Standard & Poor's reviews all of our finances, our financial practices, all of our town meeting action. At the end of that review, S&P reaffirmed the town's AAA rating. This is an excellent rating for a small community. It reflects very well on the work done by the town, all of our residents who serve on our select board, our Finance and Warrant Commission, our other appointed and elected position, all of our staff, and all of our residents and our town meeting for the professional way that they handle the town's finances. And as we've seen, a high rating helps the town issue debt at the lowest possible interest rates and saves money for our residents. Looking at our actual debt payments, efforts are made to be strategic in taking on new debt as our older debt drops off. The bar graph shows the annual debt payments each year, this graph for debt within Proposition 2.5. As shown in green, our total debt for FY23 is $3.3 million. We had a bond, a 2012 bond for roads that is $4.6 million bond, a 10-year bond that was completed in FY22. Our most recent bond that we issued this spring was a $4.6 million bond that began, the payments for that will begin in FY23. So as you can see by the graph, we were able to bring the new bond on as that old road bond ended and keep our debt at the approximate same level year to year. Looking next at our debt outside Proposition 2.5. This is for debt for any bonds approved outside Prop 2.5. And as shown in green for FY23, our total debt for those bonds is just over $1 million. So this is the exact principal and interest net of any state reimbursement for any bonds approved outside 2.5. When the bond ends, the taxing authority ends also. In FY23, we are paying for the high school and library bonds and also the first year of the first two portions of the new Hanlon Deerfield School. And as you can see on the chart, we were able to bring on that new debt and stay at the same level of that exempt debt from the current year. It's important to point out that the FY23 budget is our final year of the high school bond. That was a 20-year bond that we are completing in FY23. That's a huge accomplishment for the town to be done with that bond for that major project. And important to note that the school administration has done an excellent job in maintaining that facility so that it still feels like the important that as the debt ends, the building is still in great shape, and important that our select board and our Finance and Warrant Commission and our town meeting have made sure that we've had appropriate capital budget funds to make sure that we're maintaining that facility. So the last year that you will hear about the high school bond. Just a quick look at the financial impact of COVID. Our town meeting over the last several years has approved budgets that prepare us for a rainy day. Our town meeting approves structurally sound budgets. There are no one-time subsidies applied to our budget. We have very conservative revenue budgets. We are not inflating our revenue projections in order to spend more. Our town meeting has very purposely and methodically built our reserve counts to our appropriate levels over the last several years. As I mentioned, we strive for our operating budget growth at a sustainable level. We also have taken that meal and hotel tax revenue and designated it to a separate fund that is not applied to our operating budget. That is a revenue source that did see declines during COVID, but because that was a separate fund and only utilized once we have it in hand and only utilized by town meeting for capital budget, it just did not disrupt our operating budget. So our finances are designed to maintain essential services during a rainy day disruption. Our FY21 and 22 budgets have weathered the COVID financial impact. Important to note that we did not have any cuts to state aid during that period. We did not have to utilize any of our reserve accounts. And we were very fortunate to have outside funding to cover any specific additional COVID cost. So there have been additional costs over the last couple of years due to the COVID impact. Those included PPE purchases, the cost of remote learning, technology costs, holding vaccine clinics, impact to our public safety departments. There have been sufficient state and federal funds available to offset those additional costs. So specifically, we received $1.39 million in state CARES funding. The majority of that, about $960,000, was applied to the schools and $435,000 to municipal departments. We also received a school-specific state grant of $675,000, and then some smaller grants that were specific to Board of Health and our elections. We also were eligible for some FEMA, or federal emergency funding. So again, that additional revenue was available, allowed us to offset any additional costs that we received from COVID and allow us to keep our main budgets in place during those years. Looking now at the actual articles you'll be voting at town meeting. The financial articles are Articles 1 through 12. The first two articles, 1 and 2, are budget supplements for our current year, FY22, which ends on June 30th. These are cleanup articles that address any activity that occurred during the year. Article 1 is $190,000 and Article 2, $527,000. The major items being handled in these two articles include snow and ice activity. It did end up being a larger than normal year as far as our winter snow and ice. So we have some funds to supplement here. And then some funding, $215,000 for our fire department. And that is primarily for the impact on that department from the closing of the Norwood Hospital. The fire operations has been impacted, particularly with the ambulance, as they now have to travel further to other hospitals in Boston or other towns because the Norwood facility is closed. Looking next at Article 3, that is that main operating budget article, total of $105 million, about a 3.9% increase over the current year. That's the main budget for our school and municipal operations. When we come to that article at town meeting, the moderator will ask you to turn to Appendix D in your town meeting warrant book and lead you through the discussion on the operating budget. Next, we have our capital budget articles, Articles 4 through 7. Articles 4 and 5 are those main base capital articles, with Article 4, $1.3 million for municipal capital, and Article 5, just over $1 million for school capital. Those are at the same levels as in the current year, and those are both funded by free cash. Article 6 is our sewer capital article, $700,000, and that is funded by sewer retained earnings. Article 7 is that additional capital article, again, that we do each year, $682,000 for FY23, and that is funded by a combination of ambulance revenue and meal and hotel tax. A listing of all of the individual projects and items in each of those articles is included in your town meeting book, and it's really a standard listing of the projects to maintain the buildings and reinvest and roll over important equipment for our various school, public safety, and public work department. Next, we have two borrowing articles, Articles 8 and 12. These articles authorize the town to borrow for these appropriations. Article 8, $325,000 for two items. First, for $200,000 to a project to design a Conant Road culvert, and $125,000 to design the next expansion of the cemetery. Article 12 asks for authorization to borrow $900,000 to design the Canton Street sidewalk project. This project most likely will be funded on a construction basis by a state grant. The town does need to do the design piece of that, and that's what's being asked for in Article 12. Article 9 is our funding for our stabilization fund. This is the town's main savings account, important to protect the town in case of emergency, and a very important component of our credit rating. The bar graph shows you the balance in our account each year, as shown in green, $3.8 million in FY23, right in line with where we need to be with our financial policies. Several years ago, the town was able to build this account to appropriate level, and now each year we do a small transfer to maintain on target. So Article 9 asks to transfer $125,000 from free cash to the stabilization fund. Article 10 is funding for our Obed liability. This is our liability for our post-employment health benefits for our retirees. The bar graph shows the annual appropriation into the Obed trust account. And as shown in green for FY23, the amount is $1.5 million. As you can see on the chart, in prior years, the town was able to build up to an appropriate annual funding through some savings and changes in our healthcare plans. We now just increase our funding by $25,000 each year to stay on track with what we need to do to address this liability. So again, Article 10 asks for appropriation of $1.5 million into the trust account. And finally, Article 11. Article 11 is a request for an appropriation to the Aid to the Elderly for senior tax relief. The Aid to the Elderly is one of many tools that the town offers for senior tax relief. This is an established, successful program that has been in place since 1999. It provides great assistance to eligible seniors. Eligibility includes being 65 years or older, income at or below the Massachusetts State Circuit Breaker level, that's currently $62,000 a year, and to own their own home in Westwood. This program is a controllable cost to the town. We appropriate approximately $100,000 a year to provide for relief to about 45 to 55 recipients. Our typical recipient in this program is 80 years old and has been a Westwood resident for 40 to 50 years. The article this year at town meeting is to provide for a one-time appropriation of $300,000 funded by free cash into the Aid to the Elderly Fund. The purpose of this funding is to allow for a greater distribution to our senior recipients. It would allow us to increase the number of participants, increase the annual award to each participant, and also will allow us to help offset some of the tax impact of the new Hanlon-Deerfield School when that construction bond comes online in FY24. So again, Article 11 would look to fund $300,000 from free cash into that Aid to the Elderly Fund. That does complete our review and update of town finances and also a walkthrough of all of the financial articles. Additional information, again, is available in your town meeting book or on the town's website. And as always, we thank you for your time and your interest in the town's finances, and we thank you for attending annual town meeting.
Thank you, Pam. Now we'll start again. Article 1 comes before you on the motion of the FinCom to vote and appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $190,000 to supplement the fiscal year 2022 appropriations as set out in the article. Is there any discussion on this article? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 2 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $527,000 to supplement the the fiscal year 2020-22 appropriations as set out in the article. Is there any discussion? Hearing none and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 3 is the big budget article that Pam mentioned. I believe we're going to be voting on Appendix D, which I think is page 73 in your warrant book. I'm going to read each page. If you would like to discuss any of the line items on that page, please yell out "hold," and we'll come back to it. Page 73. Page 74. Page 75. Page 76. Page 77. Page 78. Page 79. Is there any discussion on the budget? I see one hand. Could you stand up and step to the microphone, please? If you have trouble standing, we can give you a microphone. Please state your name and your address.
Nada Milosavljevic Fabrizio, 32 Webster Street. I have a question, please. Is it possible to put a hold on page 73?
Sure. Well, why don't we discuss it now? What would you like to discuss on page 73?
The town council salary.
And your question?
I just think that it's increases more than
Could you hold the microphone down so we can hear you?
it increases more than the average person that's working. The percentages, I think, outrageous. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 3, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a majority vote in favor. This is a majority vote article, by the way. It is a majority vote in favor. Article 4 comes before the town on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,356,250 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the capital equipment as set forth in the article, capital equipment and improvements. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 4? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 4 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. It appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. Article 5 comes before the town on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,017,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the capital equipment and improvements as listed in the article. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 5? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to me a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 6 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $700,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the capital equipment, projects, and/or improvements as listed in the article. Is there any discussion on Article 6? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 6, say aye. This requires a majority vote. Say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 7 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $682,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the capital equipment projects and/or improvements as listed in the article. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 7? We have one back here. No. Is there a button on the bottom? We also have the standing mic, or we can bring over the other one. I think that's working now. No?
Yeah, I'll try that. Can you hear this? Yes, you
Yes.
can. Testing, right? I'm Sheila Hanley Longville, 24 Willow Street. I just had a question about the library parking lot. Is that resurfacing? Is it expansion? I'm just curious about that.
Thank you for your question on that. There's been some unsettling in certain areas of the parking lot, and the DPW department feels that that needs to be addressed before it further degrades.
Any other discussion on Article 7? Once again, this requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of Article 7, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 8 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds the amount of $325,000 to pay for costs and design services related to the repairs to the Conant Road culvert in the amount of $200,000 and the expansion of the cemetery in the amount of $125,000, and for the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow that amount under and pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 8? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 8, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. That's a little better. Article 9 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission to vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $125,000 for the Stabilization Fund established in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5, Cap B, and or to take any other action thereon. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 9? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 9, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 10 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,515,000 to the Obed Liability Trust Fund established in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 32, Cap B, Section 20, or take any other action thereon. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 10? Did I hear somebody? No? Hearing none? Seeing none? All in favor of Article 10, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. We're now on to Article 11. It's on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $300,000 to the aid to the elderly for senior tax relief. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 11? Is it working?
Nope. Oh, is it? Okay,
It's
great.
working.
Kevin Becker, 1227 High Street. I just want a little clarification about how we vote on number 11. Does it have any implications for the two articles that are coming up, 13 and 14, that are also related to senior tax support?
Well, do you want me to bring this over to you, Pat?
No, it has no implications on the other article, the petition articles. You vote on each warrant article on the merits of those warrant articles. It's up to the moderator.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Riddick? Why don't you stand at the podium?
Good evening. My name is Peter Idzik. I'm a member of the Finance and Warrant Commission. The Article 11 is a one-year appropriation only. Articles 13 and 14 have to do with accepting a state-approved exemption that would be continuing. The state exemptions would not be available this year. If they are approved tonight, they would need to be ratified at a subsequent election. So these are somewhat separate issues. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 11? Once again, this requires a majority vote. All in favor of Article 11, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. Article 12 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds the amount of $900,000 related to the Canton Street Sidewalk Project, to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise provided, or to take any other action relative thereto. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 12? We have one woman down here. Can we get the microphone down to here?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Cochran, 406 Canton Street. I have a question in that, does that $900,000 guarantee that this plan will go through, or is that just a preliminary measure?
Somebody from the Select Board want to answer that? Okay.
Thank you for your question. The $900,000 is for the design portion, which would be the town's cost. The town has already been in significant discussions with the state, who has indicated that they would be funding the construction portion of that. So it's not like we haven't already talked to them and we're just designing this. We've already gone through several rounds with the state about that they would fund the actual construction of that project.
Do we get to vote whether this goes through or not, or does it go through if this goes through?
If we received a state grant to do the work, that is a Board of Selectmen decision to accept a grant at that point. If we weren't having to fund additional construction costs, it would not come back to town meeting. Is that what you're asking?
All I'm asking is the likelihood of this being planned, is that a sure bet that this will go through then?
It puts it on the track to happen, yes.
Okay, I live on the wrong side of Canton Street. I've lived there for over 40 years. If anybody's ever driven down it, which I'm sure you have if you're a resident in Westwood, you'll know that there are beautiful stone walls there that have been there since my home has existed, which was in 1768. I would hate to see, as far as I can tell from what I've heard, they'll be torn up and it will be every tree will come down that happens to board that side of the street. In my opinion, it's the wrong way to spend $900,000, but I guess it's progress.
We do, when there are sidewalk and other road projects and it's design funding, the town does hold several public hearings with the neighborhood and lays out the design as it progresses, so that would occur.
We did attempt to Zoom that with the selectmen when this happened, but we didn't appear to be able to get on the Zoom to state our particular opinion at that point in time.
Is there any other discussion on Article 12? Mr. Atkins?
Thank you. David Atkins, 783 High Street. Long time before that, resident of Parker Street. This Canton Street Sidewalk project is a really once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's something that has been desired, I think, for decades. From the earliest, it solves problems that have been raised for years, from the earliest discussions with Canton Everett Forbes traffic calming, and people weren't feeling that the traffic calming was going to be effective enough, and they were asking, like, why can't more be done? And it was the cost. It was the cost of doing a sidewalk, a multi-use path, protected walkway on Canton Street would have been far too expensive to do on our own as a town. The grant program that we could be eligible for here will allow us to use this $900,000 investment in a design study to get the sidewalk built. It'll be more than just a sidewalk. It's a multi-use path, so that means that people with their kids on bikes and all could go up and down the street. And I support it for many reasons, but it's also a connecting of the neighborhood. People who are familiar with the streets that come off of Forbes roads, like Kilronan, Cushing, Spellman, Aaron, those streets, you get to the end of the street, you're at Canton Street, and it's dangerous. You can't really walk along there. This connects those streets, and it will knit the neighborhood together in a way that will have benefits for generations. So I think that we should really take this opportunity to spend this money now. We just allocated $300,000 as a one-time thing for the age of the elderly. Here's 3 times that amount, but it's an investment that will get us a grant that will build something that will last for generations. So I think we should support it strongly. Michael Kraft, the chair of the Pedestrian Bike Safety Committee, couldn't be here tonight, but he asked me to speak on this, and I just wanted to reiterate that it's a great opportunity, and it's something I think we should invest in.
I believe there was someone in the back row. If you could hand the microphone to her.
Thank you. Debbie Coney and Strasser Ave. You said that you've been in discussions about the sidewalks. Do we have an estimate of how much they're going to cost, approximately?
The construction portion, I believe, is $9 to $10 million range.
And there's no guarantee that we will get grant for that, is that correct?
This is proceeding with the understanding that the state has talked about they would fund that project.
But no guarantees, it's just an understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
Down here in the front. Ma'am, I'll give you a second chance, but I want to give everybody a chance to speak once first.
Steve Olenoff, 52 Glandor Road, member of the Ped Bike Committee, and I urge you all, just putting a little plug here, that if you're interested in this kind of thing, come to our meetings because we discuss these. So I have looked at those plans, and the plans for the Canton project show there's no removal of any stone walls. There's minimal relocation of stone walls and a few trees, but overall it really preserves the stone walls and the trees that are on there.
We have a gentleman over here who would like to speak.
Hello, my name is William Sellis, 175 Canton Street. I'm a 40-year resident of Westwood and have desired a sidewalk along the street for a very long time. So I am speaking in favor of this article. I have a beautiful stone wall that I've maintained over the years. It does not encroach on the Canton Street right-of-way, and yet the sidewalk construction may disrupt that wall. I'm willing to work with the construction crew to make sure that the wall is restored if any parts of it should be damaged, and I think the benefit far outweighs any inconvenience to my property. So I'm highly in favor of this article.
Please, please. Now, there's a woman right behind you.
I'm just going to sit after she
Oh, okay, okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak before we go back to the first speaker? Mr. Hickey? Hickey.
Hey everyone, John Hickey, 117 Sunrise Road. Todd Corchin, our Director of Public Works, is here. So Todd, why don't you just say a few words about the project and why it was supported thus far?
Todd Corchin, Director of Public Works. So the Canton Street, this is funding specifically for the design of a sidewalk along Canton Street. Our goals from Public Works over the years have been to obviously provide the highest level of pedestrian safety. There are several gaps of connectivity throughout town. This is one of the major ones. I know a lot of you are familiar with previous projects that we've come before the town regarding Gay Street being one of them, another gap of connectivity. But it was our goal years ago just to really bridge those gaps and create the highest level of safety. This is probably one of the highest levels of concern for pedestrian foot traffic along the Canton Street corridor. So as of right now, this funding is specifically just for design only. And I know there's a lot of questions pertaining to trees and comments made about destruction of rock walls, and I can assure you, through our previous projects that we've completed throughout town, I think you could all attest that that's not how we roll through projects, just leaving rubble everywhere. And we definitely would be extremely sensitive to the rock walls, to the number of trees that would get disturbed. But quite frankly, we don't have those answers until we embark on a high-level design and complete the design. And at that point, we'll have already involved the community to a high level, and we'll have tree arborists there that we could actually say there are 15 trees that will be affected, there could be 20 trees, there might be 7, but we can define which trees they are and have a true accurate number. And we can also, like in fine detail, show you where the rock walls might be disturbed, but they will be put back in place, not to a high level of masonry, because that's not what's out there right now. The aesthetic value of Canton Street is something that we can all appreciate, and I can assure you that it would be something that we would continue to maintain. So,
how about the woman behind you?
Nada Milosavljevic, Fabrizio, 32 Webster Street. Canton Street, I believe, is designated as a scenic roadway. So I don't know how a sidewalk installation or construction would be a benefit, or would it be detrimental to what people see when they're walking and driving down Canton Street? Thank you.
We have someone over here on the far right.
I'm Marla Schwartz, 32 Westwood Glen Road. Stop me if I said this before, because I know I did. A few years ago, I tripped on one of the sidewalks in town and I broke my arm. Now, I am a lovely charitable person, so I did not sue. But I don't want that happening to anybody else, and I really don't want them suing. There have been automobile accidents. There have been people killed because roads are not designed properly around here. And I think that I'm fond of trees, but I think the people's lives are more important. No, I already spoke.
Yeah, but state your address.
Oh, 32 Westwood Glen Road.
Thank you.
No problem.
We can go back to the first speaker now? No? Are we ready to vote? Okay, this article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there somebody else? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jack Cochran, 406 Canton Street. Our house is an old one. It's kind of close to the road. I've been trying to get information on this project, which apparently we haven't designed yet I'm told there's going to be 5 feet of grass, 10 feet of sidewalk, which means all the stone walls are coming down. And my guess is about 100 trees, including the big, beautiful larch tree in front of our house that shields the whole house. It sounds to me like this is just a plan, and it's already been set in place what they plan to do with the sidewalk for the bicycles. And it seems a waste to spend $900,000 on something that maybe won't happen, because I'm sure most of the residents on Canton Street don't want the whole thing to become a sunny road instead of the shady road that it is. You're going to have to move telephone poles and a lot of trees and a lot of stone walls. That's my point.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 12, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. It appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. The next two articles are citizens' petitions articles. I have given Mr. Iddig, who's proposed these two articles, do you have a point of order to make, ma'am? What was the You can't make a motion until there's an article on the floor. Article 12 has been voted on. You want to advance an article? Which article? Oh, you wanted, oh, I see, okay. A motion to advance an article up the agenda requires a 2/3 vote. And a second. Is there a second? Any discussion on the motion? I didn't hear it. What is the motion? The motion is that we discuss next Article 22 and change the order of the agenda. Article 22 is a planning board article. That would require us to have the planning board give its report and give its presentation on the article outside of the normal order. Would you like to? Would you like to? Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Did I hear somebody?
Bruce Macy Phelps, 295 Clapboard Tree Street. I'd like to know what is so urgent that we change the order of town meeting?
Mr. Moderator, may I?
Now, would you like to speak?
I motion to advance that article only because there was almost a 50-50 split with the FinCom members. And I think 50-50, 8-7, deserves discussion and thoughtfulness and see what's going on and why there was that major split. It's a big one. Thank you. I'd like to hear from someone on FinCom, if it's possible. Someone who opposes.
The motion on the floor is to change the order of the articles.
And that was
That's
my
the motion.
reason.
Is there any other discussion on the motion on the floor? This requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of advancing Article 22 to the next article, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. It appears to have failed. You did not get 2/3 vote? It did not get 2/3 vote. We're on to Article 13 and Article 14. These are citizens' petitions presented by Peter Iddig, a member of the Finance and Warrant Commission. I've given him an opportunity to record his presentation. We're going to hear that now, and then we will discuss the articles.
Good evening. I am Professor Peter Iddig. I'm a Westwood resident and a member of the Westwood Finance and Warrant Commission. There are two citizen petitions here in Articles 13 and 14 that was sponsored by over 50 Westwood residents concerning the possible adoption of exemptions for senior homeowners that are permitted by the state and offer partial state reimbursement. The second of these citizen petitions, Article 14, is the important one. It was intended to replace the earlier petition that was submitted a year ago, but it was not possible to withdraw the original article. I recommend that you vote yes on indefinite postponement for petition Article 13 as recommended by the Finance Commission. The petition in Article 14 basically concerns whether we should increase the amount of assistance granted to senior homeowners beyond that now available from the Aid to the Elderly and Disabled charity, and whether this assistance should be at the discretion of the Select Board each year or should be given to all who meet the requirements of a state-authorized exemption that provides partial state reimbursement. A member of the Westwood Council on Aging referred to the exemption proposal as, quote, an article that acknowledges, supports, and values having and keeping seniors in our town. This is the second time that a senior exemption proposal has come before the Westwood Town Meeting. The first was in May of 2000, when the town passed a similar proposal to extend assistance to a larger number of senior homeowners. That similar proposed exemption was to be based on a formula for eligibility, not limited by funds contributed. That exemption was proposed by the Select Board, approved by the Finance Commission, and approved by the town meeting in 2000 as Article 14. However, that exemption was never implemented as it was of a type that was not authorized by the legislature at that time, and it needed state approval. The state acted in 2006 by authorizing a very similar option as the Clause 41C.5 exemption, which is in tonight's Article 14. The Clause 41C.5 exemption is very similar to the 2000 Westwood proposal, but with updated limits, and it uses the income test for the so-called senior circuit breaker in the state income tax code. The state offers partial reimbursement for towns adopting that exemption. Westwood has ignored it so far. The Select Board apparently agrees that we should do more, as they propose to contribute a larger amount to the Aid to the Elderly and Disabled charity for this year only in Article 11. However, that is a one-time contribution. It remains discretionary and will probably be much smaller next year. In recent years, the Select Board has only contributed about $50,000 per year to that fund from the Select Board reserve. Citizen Petition Article 14 would have Westwood accept the more generous assistance permitted by the state in the Clause 41C1/2 exemption. I estimate this to be worth about $2,500 for those eligible in Westwood. I also estimate that the number of exemptions granted in Westwood would rise to about 150. The state offers partial reimbursement for those exemptions. In comparison, the Westwood Aid to the Elderly and Disabled charity normally assists only about 50 residents per year and provided only $1,800 to recipients in the last reported round with no state reimbursement. The Clause 41C1/2 exemption will provide more support to more senior homeowners with partial state reimbursement. Also, it is an exemption available to all senior homeowners who meet the requirements, not a discretionary grant from a charity with limited funds. An important detail is that the Clause 41C1/2 exemption will not take effect this year, even if it is approved at this town meeting, as it will need to be ratified by the voters at the next town election. Thus, the earlier contribution to the Aid to the Elderly and Disabled charity that was recommended by the Select Board will provide a helpful bridge to the new exemption and will not be duplicated by it. Both programs are means tested on income using the limits of the so-called senior circuit breaker in the state income tax code. However, the Westwood Aid to the Elderly and Disabled charity also requires that applicants must have a, quote, home value less than the town average, unquote, as shown on the application form. The home value requirement alone eliminates about half of the senior homeowners in Westwood, but the greatest limitation is that of limited funds available. Citizen Petition Article 14 would also extend the exemption for permitted widows in the Clause 17D exemption. Westwood allows the Clause 17D exemption now, but only at $175, and granted no exemptions under that clause in fiscal year 2020, probably due to severe means testing on assets at $40,000 and the failure to adopt the inflation adjustments permitted in clauses 17E and F. Citizen Petition Article 14 would have Westwood accept those inflation adjustments for the means tests and for the exemption amount. One objection to the proposal is that it complicates budgeting because the cost depends upon the number of qualifying applications, which is not known in advance, and because the value of the exemption is based upon a formula and may change a bit from year to year. I spoke with the finance director in Ashland about this, where they have adopted the Clause 41C1/2 exemption and have been using it since 2009. It works well for them, and the Ashland finance director reported that there are no significant budget complications. She further reported, quote, the exemption amount is estimated until the tax rate is set. I simply provide the estimated tax levy to the assessor and he takes it from there, unquote. Other parts of the Westwood budget require estimates, including the number of children that will be in the schools in September and the number of snowstorms in the winter. This routine estimation is not a major problem, as indicated by the Ashland finance director. Once the Clause 41C1/2 exemption is implemented, the variation from year to year will likely be small, as was the experience in Ashland. Also, the proposed exemption in 2000 had the same issue concerning the number of applications not known exactly in advance, yet it was approved by the Select Board and by the Finance Commission and by the town meeting without an offer of partial state reimbursement. Further, the proposed exemptions could pay for themselves over time, because the exemptions will allow seniors to stay in their homes longer. This saves money for the town because senior homeowners pay property taxes but are light users of town services and mostly don't have children in the school system, which is much of the Westwood budget. Thus, Westwood benefits by allowing seniors to remain in their homes longer. Another objection is that the burden of the tax exemption dollars would shift to other town residents. This was also described as, quote, the subsidizing of another's real estate taxes, unquote. In fact, homeowners with children in the public schools are being subsidized even if paying tax on $1 million house, as the tax is less than $15,000 per year, while we spend about $20,000 per year, per student per year for the schools, plus the occasional override for school construction. In contrast, the cost of the senior center in our budget is only about $130 per senior resident of Westwood. This means that homeowners with children in the public schools are being subsidized by the senior homeowners who don't. And there is a vast difference between the cost of public services for families with school children and senior homeowners who mostly don't. The proposed exemptions would slightly reduce the imbalance in costs and benefits and the cross-subsidization of homeowners. Another objection is a, quote, preference to assist seniors with local programs that are a controllable cost to the town, such as the Aid to the Elderly charity. I understand the preference of the town government for control with discretionary programs, but in the case of tax assistance for senior homeowners, this has proven to be inadequate and unreliable. The Select Board has generally only made small discretionary contributions to the Aid to the Elderly and Disabled charity since it was established. A formula-based exemption will be more reliable and for the Clause 41C1/2 exemption, more generous. Also, the preference for control means giving up the state reimbursement available for the state-authorized exemption. The existing Westwood tax relief programs for seniors reach only a small fraction of the senior homeowners in the town, and the senior exemption approved in 2000 remains a promise that was not kept. We can and should do better for our seniors. The Clause 41C1/2 exemption is a way to do this with partial state reimbursement, and this will be greatly appreciated by the senior homeowners who are struggling with fixed income taxes and inflation. Finally, I will not benefit from the proposed exemptions, nor will anyone in my family. Please note that the initial vote here is on a motion for indefinite postponement of Article 14. You will need to vote no on indefinite postponement for Article 14 in order to permit a subsequent vote on the actual exemption proposal. Thank you.
All right. This is Article 13. Comes before you. Well, let me just say the article first. It's to see if the town of Westwood shall accept and adopt the property tax exemptions permitted by state law for senior citizens in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59. This comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission for indefinite postponement. To defeat indefinite postponement requires a majority vote. If you want to approve the article, you must vote against indefinite postponement, and then we'll discuss the article. But I believe Mr. Iddig has recommended that you vote in favor of indefinite postponement for this article. So is there any other discussion on Article 13?
I don't know if we're talking about Article 13 or Article 14.
We're talking about Article 13 first.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 13? All in favor of indefinite postponement, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. It appears to be a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement. It is a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement. We're now on to Article 14, to see if the town of Westwood shall accept and adopt the property tax exemptions in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41, Cap C and a half, for those over age 65 to the full extent permitted. For those over age 70 and for surviving spouses, the town will accept and adopt the exemptions in clauses 17 Cap D, 17 Cap E, and 17 Cap F, including the inflation adjustments or the cost of living adjustments determined by the Department of Revenue for both the estate limit and for the exemption amount to the full extent permitted. This comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission for indefinite postponement. Is there any discussion on indefinite postponement? That's right. I believe Mr. Parita is going to make a presentation on behalf of the Finance and Warrant Commission. He will go first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am Chris Parita. I reside at 155 Willis Circle, and I also serve on the Finance and Warrant Commission. I've been asked by the Vice Chair to provide some context to you this evening about the presentation you just witnessed. These articles, or this article, Article 14, asks the town to adopt certain state laws with regard to providing senior citizens with property tax relief. Now, as you know from Pam Dukeman's excellent presentation, town of Westwood relies on property taxes to fund about 80% of the costs necessary to provide the services to our town. As I see it, there are three basic ways, three flavors, if you will, of property tax relief. You've got tax assistance programs where somebody else pays a landowner's property tax. That's what I would describe the Westwood's aid to the elderly and disabled fund, to the extent that it's funded by donations. Somebody else pays the tax. The town gets the tax. And then there are tax deferral programs. Tax deferral programs are typically described in terms of, well, I'm not going to pay this year's tax this year, I'll pay it at some future date. Typically when the property gets sold, and the tax plus a modicum of interest gets paid out of the proceeds of the sale. And finally, you have tax exemption programs. Tax exemption programs permanently relieve a landowner from the obligation of paying property tax for that particular fiscal year. These programs that Article 14 wants us to adopt are tax exemption programs. They are not tax assistance programs. They're tax exemption programs. You can easily conclude then that if somebody gets exempted from paying a tax, somebody else has to pick up the slack. Now, much of what Mr. Iddig's petition articles is seeking is that it's a tax exemption program that we've been told by the Finance and Warrant Commission, by the town finance department, that the town cannot reliably predict what the budgetary impact. So what would be the budgetary impact? We've heard that it's about $2,500 per exemption. Well, call me foolish, but before I recommend the town adopt a statute, I like to read the statute. And I can't find that in the statute. The statute says that the exemption is 5% of the average assessed value, property value in the town. Now, we saw earlier that the average assessed property value in our town is over $800,000. 5% of that is $40,000, not $2,500. I don't know how he gets to $2,500, and Mr. Iddig didn't present that when we were talking about it at the Finance Commission. Mr. Iddig talked about a state reimbursement. he estimates at $500, a very, very small amount. In fact, on the Ashland website, and I don't recommend that we necessarily use Ashland as our gold standard, but on the Ashland website, they valued this tax exemption under 41C1/2 at $500. If the town votes to increase that exemption, it can, to the maximum, then it would be $2,500. So it's not $2,500 right off the bat. And like I said, I don't see anywhere in the statute or the guidance that the State Department of Revenue provided, which is cited in your book, that talks about how much that's going to be, because you can't predict what the average assessed value of the town is going to be until it's certified by the state, as Pam said, later in the year. So that's what makes it very difficult to predict. And as evidence of that difficulty, we find that of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth, only 2 have adopted 41C1/2. Now, the petitioner's arguments are centered on a belief that Westwood's property tax assessment is unfair to seniors in 2 primary ways. First, that seniors ought to pay less in taxes than younger residents because they don't use as many town services, specifically the schools. However, that some residents use different town services than others is not a basis for allocating our property tax burden. The property taxes that we are assessed as a whole. We are one community, and the town provides services to everybody for the collective benefit of all of us. Secondly, Mr. Reedy said that some of Westwood seniors are eliminated from some programs because the assessed value of their home is so great. That needs testing is checked so that we only provide assistance to those people who are most deserving. Again, this is an exemption that would be available year after year after year after year. It's not a tax assistance program. So in conclusion then, the Finance and Warrant Commission, as you can see, voted 14-1 to recommend indefinite postponement. That one obviously being the petitioner himself. So I urge you to vote yes on the Finance and Warrant Commission's motion for indefinite postponement of Article 14. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 14? I see one in the back.
Doug Obed, 435 High Street. I very much appreciate that clarification of the options that the elderly have to pay or not pay their taxes. But I'd like a little bit more. Can any elderly person showing the need postpone their taxes indefinitely until the house is sold at some point in the future? Because if the elderly can do this on their own, then I don't know that we need to do it for them.
The state does have a program that a town has to adopt, and Westwood has adopted it, called tax deferral. And eligible seniors can defer their taxes. There is an income level for that, but if you meet that level, you can defer your taxes until your home is sold. And so that is a program, and it's a small interest rate that's charged. So people can opt into that program. And we have, I don't want to say many, we have several residents in town who are in that program each year, and they can defer that each and every year until their home is sold. Seniors who are in other programs in town, if they received something from the Aid to the Elderly, if they participated in our tax work-off program, they can get that assistance first and then defer the balance. So some of our seniors do that. And I will tell you honestly, with the deferral program, it is a great option for some seniors. We do have some seniors who are hesitant to do that, because when you do defer the taxes, we do put a lien on the property just to protect the town, so that, you know, if the home was sold, that lien is addressed at the time of sale. But it is a program we have, and we do find that seniors who get into the deferral may be in that program for 6 or 7 years, and at that point, they sell the house, and the town receives the proceeds at that point.
But they can continue deferring it indefinitely until the house is sold.
Yes, until the house is sold.
Perfect.
There's someone in the back. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? We can line up the microphone early.
Phil Dunkelbarger, 125 Sunrise Road. Is the means testing the same on deferral as it would be for the one that we're considering, or is it a different, level of income and so forth? In other words, is it more difficult to qualify for the deferral as opposed to the state program for?
No, I believe it's the same
The
amount.
same?
Yeah, the state uses what they call the circuit breaker, a number
Okay,
that.
so it's the same.
It changes each year, and it accelerates each year, increases each year. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other, there's a gentleman over here on the left.
Good evening, Neil Goldberg, 17 Lancaster Drive. This is more of a request for clarification. In the previous number 13, it says that other towns, such as Dedham and Needham and Wellesley, have adopted some of these exemptions.
We're on Article 14.
I know we're on 14, but I'm getting to the question is, when you use a phrase indefinite, pardon me. I'll go back.
Indefinite postponement.
Thank you, indefinite postponement. I guess I would like some clarification as to when the underlying issue will be addressed. The underlying issue being assistance to the elderly. It sounds like.
If indefinite postponement fails, then we will then have to have a motion to vote on Article 14.
Understood. I guess what I'm really getting at is the underlying issue is a challenge to the elderly to meet their tax obligations. And it sounds like we're sort of indefinitely deferring that as well. And
I'm sorry.
It sounds like we're deferring that indefinitely, the underlying question of how to assist elderly people who need assistance. So I guess my question really is, at what point will the warrant commission address the underlying issue of assistance to the elderly?
Mr. Moderator? We actually have several programs that are aid to the elderly. And at this point, I would like to call the vote on Article 14, as the petitioner had multiple opportunities to present it to the FinCom, and it was essentially unanimously defeated. And at this point,
Okay, motion to call the question does not have discussion. All in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a motion in favor of calling the question. It is a motion in favor of calling the question. We're now on to Article 14. All in favor of indefinite postponement of Article 14, which requires majority vote, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement. It is a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement. The next three articles are Select Board articles again. I believe we have a presentation from Chairman Walsh on each one.
Michael Walsh, and I've had the honor and privilege of serving on the Select Board for the past 8 years. In addition to all of the numerous articles that we have tonight for financial in the town, the Select Board has 3 articles for your consideration this evening. Articles 15, 16, and 17. Article 15 is about the Obed Baker House and the disposition of town-owned property. Pursuant to a request for bids on the property, we did have one bid, and this is to develop the Obed Baker House by restoring it and by granting other rights with the property as well. It is located at 909 High Street at this point in time, and we are looking to convey the property in question which is lots 42 and 43 on the town assessor's plot number 21. We're asking to acquire, purchase, gift, eminent domain, or otherwise, and to abandon any and all easements, rights including right-of-ways and restrictions as necessary or convenient to impose appropriate historic preservation restrictions on the exterior of the existing structure, and to convey and acquire clear title to the above referenced parcels of land on terms acceptable to the Select Board, and to enter all into agreements and instruments that may be necessary to execute on behalf of the town to the effects of the above action, or to take any action in relation thereto. Now, the Obed Baker House is located between St. Margaret Mary's Church and the Dunkin' Donuts on High Street. We are asking for your consideration and approval of this so that we can finally develop the Obed Baker House, which has been around for quite a long time and has been waiting for development.
Article 15 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to take the following actions in conjunction with the disposition of certain parcels of land for purposes of furthering the rehabilitation and reuse of the historic Obed Baker House at 909 High Street, to convey the property in question in accordance with the applicable procurement laws, those parcels of land shown as lots 42 and 43 on Town of Westwood Assessors Plot number 21, or some portion thereof. B, to acquire by purchase, gift, eminent domain, or otherwise, and/or to abandon any and all easements, rights, including rights of way, or restrictions as is necessary or convenient to impose appropriate historic preservation restrictions on the exterior of the existing structure, and/or to convey or acquire clear title to the above referenced parcels of land on terms acceptable to the Select Board. And C, to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary or convenient on behalf of the town to effect the above actions, or to take any other action in relation thereto. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 15? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 15, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Article 16, again, we have another presentation by Mr. Walsh.
Article 16 is a disposal of real property at 50 Carby Street to grant an easement for a driveway. We're looking to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to grant up to a 15-foot wide easement across a strip of town-owned land adjacent to the property at 129 Dover Road. The town will require the party acquiring the easement to pay for the cost of the required engineering work, as well as the value of the easement and any costs associated with establishing that value. As you can see from the diagrams and from the pictures, the home is located at 129 Dover Road, at the curve on Dover Road, which is unsafe for any driver to be coming in and out of the driveway. The land itself on Carby Street is not of any use to the town right now, and it does not appear to the future that we would be able to develop that small piece of land, and therefore we're looking for your approval to grant an easement to that homeowner on 129 Dover Road.
Article 16 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to grant up to a 15-feet wide easement across a strip of town-owned land adjacent to the property at 129 Dover Road, bordering Carby Street. The town would require the party acquiring the easement to pay for the cost of the required engineering work, as well as the value of the easement and any costs associated with establishing that value. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 16? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 16, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 17 is the last Select Board article, and again, Mr. Walsh has a presentation.
Article 17, we have the acquisition of real property at 90 Deerfield Avenue, known to almost everyone as the American Legion Hall. We're looking to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of money for the purchase of land and structures at 90 Deerfield Avenue, known as the American Legion Post 320, containing approximately just under an acre of land and is identified on the Assessor's Map 14, Block 95, or take any other action appropriate thereto. And we are looking to purchase this property for the value of $700,000. The property is located at 90 Deerfield Avenue and is approximately 4,785 square feet of building area with approximately 35 plus or minus parking spaces. We are looking to purchase this land for the program for the Recreation Department, which is right near the Deerfield School and the Deerfield Fields, public meeting spaces, an open community space, as well as an area for early voting for elections. There is some work needed to this building even after the purchase for $700,000, which includes renovation of the first and second floor bathrooms to make them handicapped accessible, removal of concrete steps in the lower level to make the door accessible, and of course, bringing up the plumbing and wiring codes up to par at this point in time.
Article 17 comes before town meeting on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $700,000 for the purchase of land and structures at 90 Deerfield Avenue, also known as American Legion Post 320, containing approximately 0.92 acres of land identified on Assessor's Map 14, Block 095, or take any other action thereto. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 17? We have a gentleman here.
Doug Obed, 435 High Street. I just have a quick question. Is this property being taken by eminent domain, or is the American Legion voluntarily wanting to sell this property?
Cronin Award winner is going to speak.
Edward J. Richardson, I'm the adjutant of Post 320, and I don't know if the commander's here, but I do know that they made this by agreement. It's not being taken by eminent domain.
Any other discussion on Article 17? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 7? Wait, did I announce the quantum of the vote? This requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of Article 17, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. It appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. We now go on to the Planning Board articles. I beg your pardon? You're going to have to, you're making a point of order, ma'am?
Motion to reconsider advancement of Article 22, please.
Is there a second? Any discussion on reconsideration of, this also would require a 2/3 vote. Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of advancing Article 22, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. It appears to be a vote against. You did not get the 2/3 vote. Now I'd like to turn this over to Chairman Pfaff of the Planning Board so we can present his report and then talk about the Planning Board articles.
I'm Chris Pfaff. I live at 534 Everett Street, and I'm the chair of the Planning Board. In compliance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Planning Board held 7 public hearing sessions on 6 zoning amendment articles, Articles 18 through 22. These sessions were held on February 1st, February 15th, March 1st, March 8th, March 22nd, March 29th, and on April 12th, all in 2022. At its final public hearing session on April 12th, the Planning Board voted to recommend the town meeting vote to approve Articles 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 as presented in the warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. I believe we have a presentation on Article 18.
This is Nora Locknane. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development. I'm also a resident of 74 Sterling Road, and I will be walking through the Planning Board zoning amendment articles. The first article is Article number 18. This article proposes zoning amendments relative to permitting and approval of solar arrays. The article reads, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw related to the permitting and approval process for solar energy facilities as accessory and principal uses by amending Section 2.0 definitions for roof-mounted solar and other solar array, and adding new definitions to Section 2.0, including but not limited to a definition for large-scale solar, amending Section 4.1.2, Table of Principal Uses, and Section 4.3.1, Table of Accessory Uses, amending Section 7.3 for Environmental Impact and Design Review, and by adding a new Section 7.7, Solar Design Review and Approval. The three new definitions are as follows. Roof-mounted solar would be defined as any solar arrays, facilities, or solar photovoltaic installations mounted to the roof or top of a structure and which do not extend or project beyond the eaves, ridge, or sides of said structure. Large-scale solar would be defined as any solar energy system which is not a roof-mounted solar and which occupies more than 5,000 square feet of surface area. Other solar would be defined as any solar energy system which does not meet the definition of roof-mounted solar or large-scale solar. Here are some examples of roof-mounted, other solar, and large-scale solar. The table of principal uses will be amended to show all three uses as permitted in all districts. There will be a footnote added to the table of principal uses to indicate that all solar energy systems must comply with Section 5.0 dimensional requirements and 5.2 table of dimensional requirements, including minimum setback requirements for the district in which they are installed. This proposed bylaw amendment will also change the accessory use table to make these three types of solar facilities permitted uses in all districts, and again add that same footnote requiring the uses to meet the minimum setback requirements in the district for which they are proposed. If this Article 18 is approved, large-scale solar facilities will require planning board review. Other solar facilities, which are principal uses, which is an accessory use, will be reviewed administratively by the town planner, and roof-mounted solar will only require a building permit. The new Section 7.7 will set criteria for the layout, scale, safety, and environmental impact of non-roof-mounted solar energy systems. Section 7.7 will require that these systems are set at least 25 feet back from the front lot line and that they conform to all side and rear setbacks. Section 7.7 will also allow for reasonable conditions to be imposed by the planning board or the town planner to minimize visual impacts, including vegetation, screening, or other appropriate measures. Solar facilities that require approval under Section 7.7 will also require an operation and maintenance plan and a bond for future decommissioning of the facility.
Article 18 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw related to the permitting and approval process for solar energy facilities as accessory and principal uses by amending Section 2.0, Section 4, for roof-mounted solar and other solar array, and adding new definitions to Section 2.0, including but not limited to a definition for large-scale solar, amending Section 4.1.2 Table of Principal Uses, and Section 4.3.1, Table of Accessory Uses, amending Section 7.3 for environmental impact and design review, and by adding a new Section 7.7. All is set forth in the article. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 18? There's a woman over here toward the front.
Thank you. I just had a question on the large scale. Can you describe that a little bit better?
Can you state your name and your address, please?
Sure, I'm sorry. Kathy Ann Lamb, 218 Whitewood Road.
And
In
state your question again.
If you could define the large scale, so what I just read is that if I had an acre of land, I could put a large scale solar on my land. Is that correct?
Somebody care to answer that?
In the proposed bylaw, large-scale solar is defined as any solar energy system which is not a roof-mounted solar and which occupies more than 5,000 square feet of surface area on a property. There's no limitation on how large the lot has to be. If your solar facility occupies more than 5,000 square feet and it is not on the roof of your home, it would be considered a large-scale solar facility. And then it would require approval by the planning board at a public hearing.
Any other discussion on Article 18? We have a woman in back.
Hello, I'm Jamie Allen, 530 Pond Street. I don't remember our town ever voting to become a local government of sustainability. That is what is being introduced tonight in many of the articles. That is a United Nations plan, by the way. It's all over the world. We never voted for our town. So these things are coming in the back door through our planning board and our zoning board. And there is actually, I have it written down, but let's just say this is, okay, let me back up to another point. I'm from Florida, the Sunshine State. I want to say that my sister lives in Denver, which is really the Sunshine State. She and her husband, solar power. It works amazing. I don't know if you've ever been to Denver. It is very sunny there, Mile High City. And they get so much that their energy is used for their neighbors, and they actually get a check back. Now, I live in New England. We live here. I moved up here 35 years ago. I went into a depression because of the lack of sun that is here. Like around February, my first February, I was born and raised in West Palm Beach. There's not, yesterday we had a sunny day and we were all so happy. We had a very dark winter. So I don't know why we're pushing this sustainability program here. Frankly, I think that those large-scale solar panels it's unattractive. It's not the look that we went for when we bought a house here 30 years ago. Thank you.
We have a woman here and then a gentleman over here. Can we bring the microphone down for her so she can be right after him? Can we get somebody over there? Okay.
David Atkins, 783 High Street. I wanted to make a point that the planning board's, this bylaw change is in response to interpretation of the state law, which we're currently not in compliance with the Massachusetts law, which says that solar can be regulated for public health, public welfare, or public safety of the neighborhood. So our current practice of kind of looking at a solar proposal and deciding whether it's good or not is not consistent with the current state law. And so what we've tried to do with this bylaw change is to clearly define the types of solar and to have a process in place so that the large-scale solar still goes through a public review, but it is actually not legal to completely ban these things or to have it arbitrary. We're trying to implement bylaw changes that will still preserve a public review, but that are consistent with the state law, which says that you can only deny these things for public health, public welfare, public safety of the neighborhood.
Did you want to speak, ma'am?
Hi, Claire Galkowski, 320 Dover Road, and I've been authorized to speak on behalf of the Westwood Environmental Action Committee on this article. We have been studying this for about a year now, and as Mr. Atkins noted, there is a state law that we are out of compliance with, which actually prohibits solar installations to be denied a permit on the basis of aesthetics. As Mr. Atkins said, it's to protect public health, safety, or welfare. And those are the only reasons that could be given for a denial. So if there were a denial of a solar installation, the town would be exposed to an appeal, which would require town resource to be expended on, fighting the appeal in court. There would be a public hearing, as noted, for the large-scale solar arrays, which could be opportunities for the public to express their opinions about this. The reason the state has a law is because we are in a climate crisis and we need to get off of the fossil fuels, and the only way to do that is to rapidly expand our use of non-emitting technologies to provide us with our large amounts of energy that we consume. Right now, we're consuming a lot of energy that is procured from the burning of fuels in other neighborhoods that are making those residents ill and polluting our air. So this is why the state is going in this direction, because we have to as a species, basically. So the state of Massachusetts is trying to advance moving into the new century and getting off the old types of fuel. You didn't mention ground mounts, but I might as well mention it while I'm up here. They will require an administrative review by the town planner, as noted. So aesthetics would be, considered, and remediations would be required in the form of screening and vegetation and that type of thing if it were the planner determined that it would be an eyesore. But one person's eyesore is another person's, beautiful rainbow. So this is all very subjective anyway. I'd also like to point out that right now vegetable gardens, large propane tanks, chartreuse paint, and other exterior features may also not be considered denied allowance by any of our town committees. They're as of right. And the point of the state law was to make solar closer to being as of right, similar to other external structures, swimming pools, tennis courts, that kind of thing. So that's all.
I indicate this gentleman, and then
John Horn, 229 Bruce Ave. I have a question about the administrative review, town planner's ability to impose an order of conditions. Are there any other areas in the bylaw where the town planner could do that? And what was the reason not to just put all of them in the planning board?
Administrative review by the town planner is allowed under section 7.3 of the bylaw, the environmental impact and design review. It's allowed not just for the proposed solar facilities, but it's allowed for other uses that are otherwise required to go to the planning board if it's considered a minimum change to the property with no negative effect to the abutters. The building commissioner can determine that administrative approval is appropriate. In this case, the current bylaw sends non-roof mounted solar facilities to the zoning board of appeals under a special permit. So this proposal is to take it from the board of appeals and send it to the planning board, and the form of approval would be under a site plan review application under this proposed new section 7.7 if it's a large scale solar, or if it's an other solar that's a principal use, the only use on a property. So if you have a residentially zoned property, but it doesn't have a house on it, perhaps you own two parcels, one with your house and another parcel next to you. If you wanted to propose a solar facility on the adjacent parcel, that becomes a principal use on that parcel. That would have to go to the planning board as well. But if it's an accessory use on your residentially zoned property, and it's under 5,000 square feet, then it would be eligible for review by the town planner, who can impose conditions that are reasonable, including screening, vegetation, height requirements, setbacks, and all of the facilities, no matter what type of property they are or how large they are, have to meet the setback requirements of the bylaw.
Yeah. Nora, can you repeat the question?
So why can't all these approvals go to the planning board? I mean, I don't care if it's, I don't care if it's solar or something else, but why can't all these approvals go through the board of the elected people that we put in place and not the town planner that can impose order of conditions? I mean, I had a variance. It was a very transparent process. There was a compromise involved, and a couple weeks later, the neighbor that objected moved away, but that's beside the point. I mean, but it was nonetheless an open process.
My understanding is the planning board proposed the language as drafted to allow for administrative review in minor applications, applications that don't have the potential to have a significant negative effect on adjacent properties. That's the same way they look at, for instance, a wireless communication facility. If you're proposing a new cell tower, that goes to the planning board for a special permit. If you're simply swapping out the antennas on an existing cell tower, that goes for an administrative approval. There are many other types of approvals that are administrative, all of which are considered to not have a substantial impact on the abutting properties. So the planning board wrote this article presuming that a smaller solar facility on a residential property that falls under the category of other solar would not have a negative effect that could not be mitigated by conditions of the approval, and for that reason send it to the town planner for administrative approval. If it's larger than that, a large facility or a principal facility, then it goes immediately to the planning board. And in addition, if the town planner reviews a proposal and feels that it is, for the reasons of the location on the lot or the size of the lot, for some reason the town planner feels that that property cannot be appropriately screened or would have a negative effect, the town planner is entitled to send it to the planning board. So that would be the next step for projects that may be more significant than others.
Do you have a comment? Is there anyone else? I know you do. Anybody else? No? Okay.
Hi, my name's Anna Riley. I'm at 247 Farm Lane. And I just wanted to speak really quick. I know there's some objection to solar, but I've had solar on my roof since 2002, and we haven't paid electricity since then. And it is just wonderful. We use AC, we use heat, we have electric everything, and we don't pay electricity. We get money, they owe us $700 right now, and I feel like the climate is at such a state that if we don't do every single thing that we can, it's gone. Right now is the time to act, and I feel like this is wonderful and we should pass it, and I vehemently urge everybody to pass this. Thank you.
Please, please. There's a motion to move the question. Is there a second? All in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor of moving the question. It is a unanimous vote in favor of moving the question. So we're on to Article 18. This requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of Article 18, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. You have a point of order to make, ma'am? No, ma'am, I recognize, I saw you, but a motion to call the question, it goes to an immediate vote. And the assembly voted to call the question. Okay, if that happens again, mention it to the runner. She has the microphone. She can get my attention. I've been yelled at before. I got a wife and 3 daughters. I'll be yelled at again. Don't be afraid to yell.
Okay.
All right? Article 19, and we have a presentation on this.
Article 19 proposes zoning amendments relative to property on High Street in the vicinity of the historic Obed Baker House and Westwood Plaza. This article reads, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the official zoning map in order to facilitate the redevelopment and reuse of the Obed Baker House and the redevelopment of the adjacent commercial plaza by changing the zoning designation of the currently undeveloped parcel of land shown on Assessor's Parcel 21 as Lot 43 and the zoning designation of a portion of town-owned land shown on Assessor's Parcel 20 as Lot 72 from Single Residence C to Local Business A District, and by expanding the Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District 7, the FMUOD 7 High Street Business District, to include these additional parcels, and by making related amendments to the text of Section 9.5 of the Westwood zoning bylaw related to FMUOD 7 Overlay District. This article would allow for the proposed redevelopment of the Obed Baker House. The rezoning article is associated with Select Board Article 15, which called for the disposition of the town-owned property, including the Obed Baker House. Note that all redevelopment would require Planning Board special permit review. Here's a map that shows the Obed Baker House and adjacent town-owned property to be redeveloped under this zoning amendment and the land disposition article. If this Article 19 is approved by town meeting, it would also allow for the potential mixed-use redevelopment of the adjacent commercial plaza. This slide shows the existing zoning map and the proposed zoning map change. The map on the left shows the Obed Baker House in green. That is a currently Local Business A District property, and in yellow, the vacant land adjacent to the Obed Baker House is a Single Residence C zone property. The map on the right shows that all of the property would be rezoned to Local Business A in green and would have the FMUOD 7 overlay district, which is demonstrated by the red dots. That would allow for mixed-use redevelopment of the Obed Baker property, adjacent town property, and the commercial plaza.
Okay. Article 19 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to approve certain amendments to the official zoning map in order to facilitate the redevelopment and reuse of the Obed Baker House and the redevelopment of the adjacent commercial plaza. By changing the zoning designation of the currently undeveloped parcel of land shown as Assessors Parcel 21 as Lot 43, and the zoning designation of a portion of town-owned land shown as Assessors Parcel 20 as Lot 72, from Single Residence C to Local Business A District, and by expanding the flexible multiple use overlay District 7 High Street Business District to include additional parcels, and by making related amendments to the text of Section 9.5 of the Westwood zoning bylaw related to the FMUOD 7 overlay district, all is set forth in the article. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 19? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 19, say aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. We're on to Article 20, which also has a presentation.
The next article is Article 20. This proposes zoning amendments relative to the expansion of non-conforming structures. The article reads, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw to amend Section 4.5.3 non-conforming structures, including but not limited to amendments to Section 4.5.3.3, variance required for new or expansion of nonconformity, to allow alterations to nonconforming properties by special permit rather than variance, when determined appropriate by the building commissioner. In 2017, the zoning bylaw was changed to require a variance process for most expansions of nonconforming structures. Court cases have determined that nonconforming structures are entitled to greater flexibility for alterations, which are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Town Council recommends amendment of the zoning bylaw for greater consistency with relevant case law. The proposed revisions to Section 4.5.3.3 affecting nonconforming structures. If the building commissioner finds that the proposed alteration might be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, the Zoning Board of Appeals will consider a variance application. If the building commissioner finds that the proposed alteration would be de minimis or not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, the Zoning Board of Appeals will consider a special permit application. In all cases, the final decision to grant or deny the variance or special permit will be made by the Zoning Board of Appeals following a public hearing.
Article 20 comes before us on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw to amend Section 4.5.3 as it relates to non-conforming structures, all as set forth in the article. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 20? I see a gentleman way in the back.
Good evening, Brian Clinton. I was just going to start rap. Hello, Brian Clinton, 44 Baker Street, Westwood. I just want to urge those people, I want to thank the planning board. I've been following this very closely. My family, who has a disabled resident, was denied a variance, and we have a pre-existing house. We were just trying to put a porch, very common sense thing for people as property owners. This is, you don't realize the ramifications this can have on certain families. And I just urge everybody tonight to vote in favor of this very simple change. Again, I want to thank the planning board and FinCom for recommending this. Thank you.
I think there's someone in the back section in the first row. Is there anybody else? It's a little difficult to see up here. I didn't mean to be flip with your ma'am.
Kevin Becker, 1227 High Street. I guess my question is about, it's kind of related to the last article. where the gentleman asked about why wasn't it an administrative review, and I guess I'm asking, or he was asking why it didn't go to the planning board, and I'm asking kind of why it doesn't go for administrative review if the building commissioner has already determined that it's de minimis. Because it seems as though what happens here, if you're having a minor change, de minimis, you go for a special permit to the planning board, and then you go to the ZBA, who has the final approval. So the building commissioner's already decided minor changes, but yet you've got two boards that you have to appear before. Am I understanding that correctly?
The planning board would have no role in considering applications for special permits. All of these applications would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. If the building commissioner determines that it is unlikely to be to negatively affect the neighborhood or is a de minimis change, the building commissioner can send it to the zoning board for a special permit. If the building commissioner does not make that finding, he sends it to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance. In all cases, then, it's the Zoning Board of Appeals that makes the decision. They decide to either approve or to deny the special permit or the variance. In the case of a variance, in order to grant approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals has some very stringent criteria they have to look at. They have to determine that there's something unique about the property that allows them to consider the variance in the first place. For a special permit, they don't have to make that uniqueness finding. They would simply have to find that there is no greater detriment to the neighborhood than the existing conditions. But the planning board would not be involved at all.
Any other discussion? All in favor? This article requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of Article 20, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. No. Appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Article 21, we have a presentation on this one.
The next article is Article 21. This article proposes zoning map amendments relative to 394 and 396 Providence Highway. The article reads as follows: to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the official zoning map to change the zoning designation of the parcel of land at 394 Providence Highway, Assessor's Map 24, Lot 82, from Industrial Office District to Highway Business District, and to include the currently unzoned parcel of land at 396 Providence Highway, Assessor's Map 24, Lot 3, within the Highway Business District, and to expand the Wireless Communications Overlay District and the Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District, FMUOD4, to overlay said parcels. These properties are the site of the existing Shell service station. This property is a pre-existing, non-conforming use in an industrial office district. The site includes the former Mass DOT right-of-way, which is currently unzoned. This proposed rezoning would create a conforming use and zone the former right-of-way. Redevelopment under the new zone would require review by both the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. This slide demonstrates the existing and proposed zoning map. The existing zoning map on the left shows the property under the industrial office designation, that's the orange color in the map, with the Wireless Communication Overlay District and Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District 4 overlaying that property. The small white section at the corner of Walper Street is the unzoned former Mass DOT right-of-way. The map on the right shows the proposed zoning, where the lavender color overlays the Shell Station lot and the former Mass DOT right-of-way. The lavender color represents the Highway Business District, and the property continues to be overlaid with the Wireless Communication Overlay District and the FMUOD4 district.
Okay, Article 21 comes before us on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to approve certain amendments to the official zoning map to change the zoning designation of the parcel of land at 394 Providence Highway and to include the currently unzoned parcel of land at 396 Providence Highway. All is set forth in the article. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 21? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 21 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Now, Ms. Fabrizio, we can get on to Article 22. And I want to thank the producer of this program, Melinda Garfield. This has all been very seamless and smooth. She's better than Holly Hunter in broadcast news. Cue it up, please.
The next article is Article 22. This article proposes zoning bylaw and zoning map amendments relative to mixed-use and multifamily residential overlay districts. We'll refer to that as Mumford districts. The article reads, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw by adding a new Section 9.9, mixed-use and multifamily residential overlay district, pursuant to Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020, amendments to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, for MBTA communities, and amending the official zoning map to include a mixed-use and multifamily residential overlay district encompassing certain parcels identified within the proposed Section 9.9. In 2020, the State Zoning Act amendments were enacted by the legislature to promote the production of multifamily housing within walking distance of public transportation. This was done in order to address a severe regional housing shortage. The new law states, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, Part A, Subpart 1, an MBTA community shall have a zoning ordinance or a bylaw that provides for at least one district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted by right. The key components of the law are as follows. At least one zoning district must be provided of reasonable size. That district must be located within 1/2 mile of a train station or bus stop. The district must allow housing that is suitable for families with children. No age or bedroom restrictions will be permitted. The zoning district must contain a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre, and multifamily permitting process for the zoning district cannot be discretionary. Here are some examples of density, residential density, for use in comparing and understanding what 15 units per acre would look like. The examples here are first the Gables residential development at 8595 University Station. That property contains 350 apartments and the density is 51.9 units per acre. Also at University Station is the Westwood Place development at 120-130 University Avenue. This property contains 100 condominium units at a gross density of 36.4 units per acre. Other examples, 282-298 Washington Street. This is a mixed-use building that will contain 18 condominiums. The residential density on this property will be 21.7 units per acre. At 672 High Street, we have the former Colburn School Building, which is also a mixed-use building with condominiums above a commercial use. This property contains 6 condominiums and the density is 13.6 units per acre. Two other examples, one on 321 Washington Street is a mixed-use building with 12 apartments and a density of 12.6 units per acre. And at 401 Washington Street, there's a residential building with 9 apartments, and the density there is 8.6 units per acre. The draft guidelines that are promulgated by the Department of Housing and Community and Development, which are designed to implement this new state law, were initially released on December 15, 2021. Final guidelines are expected in the summer of 2022, and compliance with the new law is required by December 31st of 2023. The draft guidelines define reasonable size for the new multi-use district, multi-family housing district, as at least 50 acres of total land area and at least 25 acres per overlay district. These draft guidelines set the housing capacity for bus communities at 20% of a community's housing stock, and for commuter rail communities, they set the housing capacity at 15% of a community's housing stock. Westwood is proposing 2 Mumford locations, one at University Station, which would include 2 separate properties, University Place by Pulte Homes at 120 and 130 University Avenue. These are the 100 2-bedroom condominium units, and the Gables residential property at 85 to 91 and 95 University Avenue. These are the 350 1- and 2-bedroom apartment units. All of these units are currently existing, and these 2 properties would be included within the proposed Mumford zoning district. A currently undeveloped or underdeveloped property that would also be included in the Mumford district is at Everett Street. This is the Foster Block property at 22 Everett Street, and this property has the capacity for 102 housing units. The Department of Housing and Community Development draft guidelines currently designates Westwood as a bus community. As a bus community, Westwood would have to implement housing unit capacity of 20% of its total housing stock. With 5,801 housing units currently in our stock, that would require 1,170 possible housing units to be allowed by right in a multifamily district. Dividing that number of units by 15 units per acre would result in a need for 77 acres of a total district size for the Mumford zone. If Westwood was redesignated as a commuter rail community in the final guidelines, the housing unit capacity requirement would drop down to 15% of total housing stock. That would require 870 possible housing units, or 58 acres of a Mumford district. The current proposed Mumford district that the Planning Board recommends has a total district size of 16.16 acres. It has a minimum density of 15 units per acre and an existing housing unit count of 450 units. The total possible housing unit count would be 552 units, which would equal 9.5% of the total housing stock. It is the Planning Board's position that the proposed Mumford district meets the requirements of the law, if not of the draft guidelines, by enacting a district of reasonable size with 15 unit per acre density that achieves the goals of the law by creating housing by right in a mixed-use district.
Article 22 comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw, all as set forth in the article. You thought I was going to read it all, didn't you? Is there any discussion on Article 22? Ms. Fabrizio, I'll give you the chance to speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to hear from members of the FinCom that are opposed.
Having a little trouble hearing you. Can you speak a little louder?
I'd like to hear from members of FinCom who are opposed to this article. because the vote from FinCom was split 8-7. And I think it's important that people understand why the opposition is opposed to this article. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to announce, this article requires a majority vote, not a two-thirds vote. Did you wish to speak, sir?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Moderator. John Harding, 148 Forbes Road. I'd like to make a motion for indefinite postponement of Article 22.
I don't think you can make a motion for indefinite postponement. The article is before the town. We have to vote for it. You can recommend that we vote against it, but you can't make a motion for indefinite postponement.
A motion for indefinite postponement is valid at any time before the article's been
I
acted
think a
upon.
motion for indefinite postponement has to come from...
Anyone who is a town meeting member, and I've been a member of town meetings in 2 towns for 30 years, can make a motion to indefinitely postpone consideration of the article. And that's what I'm asking for, and to have a discussion of that point.
Okay. My ruling is you cannot have a motion for indefinite postponement coming from the floor. It's got to come from FinCom. If you would like to argue against the article, feel free to do that, Mr. Harding.
Okay?
Point of order, point of privilege. I can't hear. If you guys could speak up, please, I appreciate it.
I have ruled that you cannot make a motion for indefinite postponement from the floor of town meeting. You can argue against the article, but you cannot make a motion for indefinite postponement. So go on with your argument, Mr. Harding, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, the minority position on the FinCom was essentially that town meetings simply defer consideration of this matter. It's not that they voted that this is wrong, that they're totally against it, but it's a matter of timing. And the problem with this article is that it does not tell you what exactly would go on this spot on Everett Street. This is not an abstract proposition. Members of the planning board have had extensive discussions with a specific developer about putting up a development on this site. And what they're giving away now, or asking you to give away now, is any right to control what is there. For those of you like me who went through the Westwood station process, like it or hate it or think it's okay or not okay, there was a process. And there were extensive presentations by the developer at endless planning board meetings. We saw the specifics, and the planning board reserved its right to control what ultimately was put there. Here, what they're asking you to do, unlike the article that was just a minute ago on the Obed Baker house and the High Street development, where they would be under special permit, is that this could be done as of right. But they're not showing you any schematic of what would actually go there. We're talking about a 4-story, 120-unit building with no consideration of what are the impacts going to be on the schools, what are the traffic impacts, what are the environmental impacts on a site that's regulated by the state. So I don't think that this town meeting has sufficient information to make a decision about whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. We need the specifics and not to have these abstract propositions of, yes, just change the zoning map without seeing the specifics of what is going to go there. So there's simply no reason for us to do it now. As was said, excuse me, during the presentation, these are draft guidelines from the state. They're not final. They're not going to be final for several months. There's no urgency to do this now, and we can consider it in a more careful way once there's an actual presentation of what this project would be, what would its impact be on the community, on schools, on traffic, on the environment. So for those reasons, what I'm suggesting is that you reject this article now so that we can have transparency about what the project actually is that's being proposed, so you can understand what you're voting for instead of being asked just to write a blank check that would give developers a right to do whatever they wanted with no oversight from the town.
Please, please, please. Is there someone over here? The front section? She's got a microphone right behind you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's a standing mic. Is there anyone else? Got someone back here. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Moderator. My name's Gary Kaplan, 101 Magnolia Drive. So I am a long-term town member. I am a committee member in the Westwood Affordable Housing Association. I am speaking to provide the strongest possible support for the Mumford District. As you've heard, there is an urgency. We are in the midst of a housing crisis here in Westwood and in Massachusetts. If approved tonight, the Mumford zoning bylaw would accommodate multifamily homes that would enhance housing affordability in Westwood, create greater town diversity, provide more energy efficiency by reducing automobile dependency, and would improve land use in Westwood. Affordable housing demand comes from two sources, both younger families who want to participate in the many benefits of a town like Westwood, and also older long-term residents who want to downsize and stay in this community. The district would assist more diverse families in their participation of the benefits of being a Westwood resident, which includes, as everyone knows, excellent schools and public services with good transportation options. Current residents of Westwood, all of us, have benefited from these opportunities, and we can certainly share this experience with others through this proposal. Affordable housing in general has been shown to lift up all residents, encourage social connections, attract businesses, jobs, and lower crime. Affordable housing builds stronger communities where people of different backgrounds can come together. Again, we are in a housing crisis now, and I urge you to vote for the Mumford District. Thank you.
We got a woman over here, and then I see a hand up there.
Marla Schwartz, 32 Westwood Glen Road. I think this is wonderful, Bill, but I know you said we cannot move for infinite postponement, but can we move for 1 year's postponement until we know what the state law is going to require?
Okay.
Because if we can, I'd like to move that we do that.
Okay, we got a gentleman up here who'd like to speak? Up in the roof box?
Michael Jerome, 15 Gay Street Extension. I'd like to agree with the first speaker. I happen to have close ties to some people over at 22 Everett Street, and the rumor over there is that there's going to be 520 units, not 100 and something that was mentioned in the video. And I appreciate the media gal up there doing a great job, but she also failed to mention in that video that there are other towns holding off until December 2023, waiting to get more clarification on these guidelines. Thank you.
Please hold your applause. Please hold your applause. Ms. Lockney, did you wish to speak? And then this gentleman, I see someone up there, and then a few over here.
I'd just like to correct a couple of misstatements that have been made by members of town meeting. The planning board has not participated in any discussions with the property owner or any developer on this project. I have spoken to the property owner and multiple developers over more than 10 years. This property has been for sale for all of that time, and there have been several different developers who have looked at the property and attempted to develop it for commercial and mixed use. Over that time, the property has been rezoned many times. It was originally just a highway business district. A little more than 10 years ago, the overlay district, the flexible multiple use overlay district, was added to allow up to 50% of the property to be developed for housing. A few years after that, when there was still no working proposal to redevelop the property, the town meeting voted to approve another change that would also allow the property to be developed for senior residential development at 100% residential development of the property. This is yet another proposal that proposes to meet state law. So while the property can already be developed for mixed use, or for all senior housing. Neither of those proposals would necessarily meet the state law that we are currently required to act under. So the proposal here is to change the zoning to enact this new overlay district over 2 parcels at University Station and this 1 parcel at Everett Street. This single parcel, if developed at 15 units per acre as proposed in the bylaw, could accommodate a total of 102 residential units. That could be a standalone residential development or it could be a mixed-use residential development. There is currently no proposal. All there is a purchase and sales agreement for a developer to purchase the property from the property owners. There have been no plans drawn and brought to the board's attention. I have not seen plans for this proposal yet. It is just an idea of what could come about. The plan here that the planning board proposes is to develop the property, is to develop a zoning bylaw that will achieve the goals of the state law. It does not yet achieve the goals of the draft guidelines. We're not sure what those guidelines will say in the end, but we do believe that by adopting this law, we put the town in a better position by at least complying with the letter and spirit of the law itself. So for that reason, I recommend that you vote in favor of this article.
We're going to go to Ms. Allen next, then we'll go to you, then we'll go to you, sir, and then the woman in the mask. Point of order?
Jamie Allen, 530 Pond Street.
Hold on a second. What's the point of order? What's the point of order?
Marla Schwartz, 32 Westwood Glen Road, and I asked a question about whether we could postpone this for a year. I know you
Ma'am,
said...
that's not a point of order. You can ask a question if no one wants to
Well, I
answer
didn't
it. There's
get an
nothing I can
answer.
do about it.
I didn't get an answer.
Please, Ms. Allen.
So I guess this segues with the question I had before, because once again it is mentioned that we're not following state law. That sounds very intimidating. And my understanding, someone else can clarify, is that if we're not, following state law, that means that we may not have the opportunity to have the state grant. And my understanding also is I'm not a public speaker. I've been a homemaker for too long, so thank you for bearing with me.
You're doing just fine.
Okay, so I'm concerned that the state has put out a draft of guidelines and they have not been finalized, and yet we're going ahead to vote for something we don't know. And we are in essence giving up private property rights, and we are just putting our trust in the state. Now, I will say, I love those pictures up there, those buildings. If we were guaranteed that that's what's going to happen and where it's going to happen, that looks great. But we are voting on something that we don't know. The law says a reasonable amount of land. What is reasonable? That's like one of those squishy words. And if we're a bus community, 20% of our property, the state is in control, not the town, not our zoning, no votes from us. And I wonder, and I'm not letting go of this because the guy didn't let me ask the question next time, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to say everything right now. So the thing is that we have no idea what the state could do eminent domain. They could, and this will not necessarily just affect the footprint of what is decided on. It will affect, the surrounding areas, and we don't know how yet. We don't have to decide on this we have 15 months. The only reason I think that we're pushing this through quickly is because it's catching the town unawares and the people who live in those communities. where they can't take the time to get informed. This is centralized planning. This does not support private property rights. And I would like everyone to look this up. MPAC.org, Metropolitan Area Planning Council. That is a regional planning committee. These people were not elected by us. There's 110 towns under them. They are planning our town. This is not happening organically. I would like us to take a deep breath
You got about 30 seconds
and
to
do
go.
this with the town and the people specifically who live in those areas. Give them an opportunity to be informed. Give the state an opportunity to finalize their guidelines so we know what we're voting for. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to this gentleman. And Diana, could you give the microphone to the gentleman in the corner? He'll be next, please.
Hi, I'm Raymond Aglagab. I'm 14 Ford Place. I'm a big proponent of increasing affordable housing. That being said, I do want to echo the sentiment expressed at the beginning, which is I really would like to hear from the minority position, because I think we're all just very much confused about what are the potential consequences of voting either way. So if there is any capability for the minority position to speak on that, it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to go to that gentleman, and then we're going to do the woman with the mask, and then Mr. Ferrara.
Lou Rizzoli, 120 Arcadia Road. I'm the... Okay.
Just hold it closer to your mouth.
Closer, yeah. You could probably hear me without the mic, but I'm also the chairman of the Westwood Housing Authority and the Westwood Affordable Housing Associates, but I'm speaking here just for myself and not the whole group. This law was passed.
Hold it a little closer, please. I think it's more the mask than the microphone.
How's this?
Much better.
Okay. Thank you. So I've been a resident of Westwood for more than 40 years, and I have watched what's happened when we have decided not to go forward with accepting state laws on housing. In the late 1980s, a developer came in and said that he was going to put 300 condo units where Westwood Lodge was located. It took the town 10 years and much money with law firms and engineering firms to finally convince the state that we should have 100 single families behind there. This law is not going to change. The regulations will change. We are in full compliance if we pass this law. We will not have any of our discretionary funds held up at all. And we can take this, pass the law, pass this change in the zoning laws tonight and work with developers and also wait for the final regs to come out. But the idea that somehow we think that we're going to change the law and it's not going to be that way, it's just not going to happen. I urge you to vote in favor of this.
All right, I see a lot of people. One here, I recognize Mr. Ferraro, and then Mr. Parita, and then Ms. Cronin, and two people over here. So we're going to limit the remarks to 2 minutes now, and then Ms. Fusco in the back. And it'll be in that order.
Hi, Maria Costantini, 15 Spalman Road. I also have lived in Westwood. Hello? Can you see me? Okay, I'll try to skip. Okay, thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments. I'll be very brief, but I don't understand why there is so much upheaval here about this. We are only rezoning 3 areas, Two are already built. We're not giving a blank check to a developer. We're just rezoning a small area on Everett as a multifamily. I mean, what could be bad about that? We don't, obviously we'll be involved in the process if there is a development, but this is a small step they can take to allow more families in Westwood.
Okay, Mr. Ferraro, then Mr. Pareda, then Ms. Conant, and then the two gentlemen.
Yeah.
Jim Ferraro, 130 Phillips Brooks Road. I represent the minority opinion of the Finance Committee. Many of the opinions you've already heard in opposition to this motion were part of the minority's opinion, and with the intent to move things along, I'm going to try to cut those short. But first I wanted to point out that what you see in your warrant book regarding the minority write-up appears to be a little softer than what I wrote. There are a couple of issues regarding, one, they imply that the minority thinks that the warrant article is in compliance, that Newton and Milton are the only two towns that are against this, and that a memo from the school committee would satisfy all our requirements. Those aren't the case. But not to reiterate the law itself has 3 paragraphs, the first of which was already presented to you, the second which details the penalty for non-compliance, and the third, which was the difference between compliance with the law and questionable compliance with the law. The third one states that the MBTA, in addition to several other departments, quote, shall promulgate guidelines to determine if the MBTA community is in compliance with this section. Again, it says shall. Those guidelines have not been drafted. In fact, in a
I'm going to give Mr. Ferraro another minute because he's the minority report. But to point out, there are very detailed reports from both sides in your warrant book. And the FinCom did a good job in reporting this article. Thank you to Mr. Hurst. Thank you to Mr. Ferraro. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry about that.
Quoting a Boston Globe article about a week or 10 days ago, stating, as Governor Charlie Baker's administration drafts rules for how the law will be implemented, more than 6 communities are balking at the new law. So as recently as last week, they still do not have any determination what's going to happen, how it's going to go forward. And 60 of the approximately 175 communities, or 1/3 that we know of, are taking a second look at this.
About 30 seconds, Jim.
Now, the minority is not for or against this, but we want to know if this is granted by right, the town gives up its right, will have little or no input into what goes here. You saw the 21 Washington Street property with an 18% density. You'd have approximately 5 of those in the Tumble Bus lot. What we do know is it's family oriented with 102 units. You could guesstimate that there'd be minimum 102 students that we know will probably be attending the Hanlon School.
Can you wrap it up, please?
The fact of the matter, we've heard a lot about state law. The state law is not going to be enforced until December of 2023, so we're not out of compliance. And the penalty is in the statute. There's some debate.
Okay, Jim.
Can I have 30 seconds more?
I'll give you.
There's some debate that the penalty is in the statute, so that developer will not be able to come in and usurp law because the statute provides what the penalty is. Again, there's no need to rush. We've got 18 months, at least 3 town meetings, if you consider the fall town meetings. With 1/3 opposition to this statute, it's feasible that the state may sweeten the pot for the town. We should wait to see what happens instead of jumping out in front of this. Thank you.
Mr. Pareda, and then we're going up to Ms. Cronin. It might be easier if you line up at the microphone, and we'll do Ms. Fusco right after that.
Look for that later. When you want to vote. Good evening, Chris Pareda, 155 Willis Circle, also a member of the Finance and Warrant Commission. And my colleague, Jim Ferraro, and I stand on opposite sides of this issue. I just want to say, in addition to what's in your book, this is not about affordable housing. This is not about where students are going to be going to school. The school committee can deal with that issue and when the time comes. This is not about giving up control. The only thing this statute requires is that as of right, it's a multifamily district. Nora explained that the rest of the process will still be in the hands of the planning board. The only thing that is at issue here is, do we poke the state in the face by saying, no, we're not going to do anything? Or do we do something that we think is reasonable for our town and then argue that we tried? We don't know when these guidelines are going to be issued and finalized. We don't know when the Department of Community Development is going to start imposing compliance rules. That's all up to them. If you want to trust the state, and personally I don't trust the state, then delay. But if you don't want to trust the state, if you want to do something that reacts to this statute right now, then pass this zoning overlay district. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Conant?
Debbie Cronin, 21 Strasser Ave. I'd like to reiterate that this is not about affordable housing per se. It has to do with the how quickly we're moving forward with this zoning article. We have had multiple communities, as was already brought out, that are contesting this. The Massachusetts Municipal Association, as well as the Massachusetts Municipal Law Association, have written letters concerned about the guidelines. The areas that the planning board has chosen are great areas, and I think that we just need to take a step back and wait until the official guidelines come out. We cannot unring the bell once it's been rung. If we go and approve this and we have a developer come in, then we're in a situation where it is now a bylaw for us. We can't back out of that unless we bring it to town meeting again. And we also have the issue of a zoning freeze based on what we've just voted in. There's no rush to wait. We have till December of 2023. And I ask that you consider that. And going back to the affordability, there is no requirement by the state that these apartments have to be affordable. They can be rented at whatever price they want to be rented at. And yes, a certain amount can be made affordable based on the number of units.
30 seconds left.
I'm sorry? Oh, and that's what we need. We need affordable housing, but we want to do it right. So I ask that you do your due diligence, you think about this, go home, bring it back to town meeting. I just don't think we're ready for it yet.
Ms. Fusco?
Actually, this one's louder.
Thank you to Diana and Ruby for all the running tonight, by the way.
Hi, my name's Fran Fusco, and I live at 20 Pine Lane. And I also want to reiterate that there's a few misconceptions going on here. One being, this is not an affordable housing unit. If we're lucky, we would get 15 units out of 102, which would be 15.3 units, I believe. So that's that. And the other misconceptions is from what I've read from the state, trying to zone over at University Ave, they do not want properties that are already developed. And lastly, lost my thought here. Can't remember what I was just going to say. There's another misconception, and
Right, if you
I
can't
can't
think of
remember.
it. Okay.
I can pass
Why
it
don't
on
we go
to
over
whoever
the-
needs it, but
The blue shirt's over here on the right.
yeah, I'll try again.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. George Laham, 17 Aaron Road. I'm a member of the Finance Commission, and I was on the Minority Report, and I wanted to respond to, I think it was 6 different questions with one answer. The responsibility, in my opinion, of the Finance Committee is to verify and confirm. We get information, we vet it, and then we make the best decision we can on the information we got. I was in the minority report here, and it says it right here, and this says it the best that it can be said. The minority believed it is better to have all the information possible before taking action. The minority did not believe that we had all the information possible to make the best decision for the town. I have been in the town for 36 years. I remember Chase Estates and the debacle that happened there, if you call it that. But, that's why I'm waiting. I just need more information before, in good judgment, I can make an opinion to the residents of Westwood who have put their faith in me before I can support something like that. Thank you.
Okay. Please hold your applause. Please comply with the rules. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Michael Gay. I live at 291 Weatherby Drive, and I also am on FinCom. I would like to first start by reading from the comprehensive plan that many of you in this room helped write, from the housing section of the comprehensive plan, which is what Westwood stands for. Goals and objectives. The housing goals of this plan reflect the goals of the 2019 Housing Production Plan and the town's desire to have more types of housing available for people in more types of situations. This includes young families, single-headed households, seniors, singles, persons with disabilities, and the local workforce. Objective 1, diversify the housing stock by increasing the availability of moderately priced homes, senior housing, rental units, condominiums, and townhouses, and attached style housing. Objective 2, provide opportunities to increase the racial and ethnic diversity of the community. Objective 3, implement policies and regulations to provide more low and moderate income housing options. I voted in favor of this article, first off, because our elected planning board unanimously backed it. They've put more time into this issue than all of us combined. And it was open to everybody, so you could involve yourself in the planning board meetings. Number 2, I voted for this because it's what we want as a town, or at least what I want as a town. One of the esteemed FinCom members introduced me to a term called NIMBYism, not in my backyard. I believe that the call for delay is a call for not in my backyard, and I don't stand for that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Pfaff, and then I think everybody in the hall has spoken.
Hi, I'm Chris Paff, 534 Everett Street, current member of the Planning Board. I think it's important that everyone understand why we thought the way we did. We were elected by the town to be the zoning arm of the town, to create zoning. Zoning is a tool. It's a tool to help protect our town, to help craft our town to be the image that we want. We didn't go out looking for a multifamily zone. We were told by the state, do this. Do this. That's what we were told. That's what we did. At the advice of town council and our own collective understanding of zoning and why this is important, we decided not to wait. We decided we were going to use zoning as our tool to help protect our town. We believe enacting this bylaw protects us. It doesn't put us at risk. The Tumble Bus lot needs to be redeveloped, be it senior residential housing at 100% housing or multifamily housing. It doesn't matter. It needs to be developed. It's 102 units maximum. 350 units at the Gables have yielded somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 some odd children in our school district. Think about that, 3.5 times more units, 40 some odd children. There's no guarantee that every child that moves into this is going to be in the elementary school. Half the children are aged past that in our school district. It's really important that you know that if you don't zone for it, it can go anywhere. If you're not zoned for it, you're not protecting yourself. We're told half a mile away from a train or bus station. That's where we had to focus on. We believe we picked the best 3 locations that we have to offer within a half a mile of a train station. It's not easy to do.
Please stop.
We made the decision that we weren't going to zone existing single-family home addresses because we knew the response that would yield. The Tumble Bus location needs to be redeveloped. This is the opportunity we can comply with the law in so doing. If you vote it down and wait a year, there's no guarantee a developer's not going to come knocking on our door. And whether they say they can or can't, we still have to defend ourselves.
Okay, please wrap up.
Okay, I urge you, please consider this to protect our town.
All in favor of moving the question? All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote and move the question. The question has been moved. You have a point of order?
No, I wanted to continue the state, just a question and a comment.
No, the town meeting has voted to move the question, so we're now on Article 22. This article requires a majority vote, and I think we're going to use the clickers. So if you're in favor of Article 22, you're going to vote yes or press 1.
Yes in favor, no and not in favor.
If you're against it, you're going to vote no or 2.
Could you repeat that, please?
I beg your pardon?
Can you repeat that?
Repeat that? Yes. We're using the voting devices. If you're in favor of Article 22, press the green button. If you're against Article 22, press the red button. This requires a majority vote. Voting is open. Voting is open. All right, are we ready? We're ready to close the vote. Yep. It is a vote in favor by 117 to 59. We have one article to go. That's Article 23. Do we need the presentation? No? Okay. This is a housekeeping article. By the way, Medfield did not get a quorum tonight. We did. I thank all of you. We behaved very civilly. We didn't have an exciting article like in Nantucket with the beaches, but Article 23 comes before you on the motion of FinCom to vote and approve certain housekeeping amendments to various sections of the Westwood zoning bylaw and/or the official zoning map. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 23? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 23 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. It appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Can I have a motion to dissolve the town meeting? Is there a second? All in favor of dissolving town meeting say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. It's a unanimous vote in favor of dissolution. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.